Greetings and welcome to The Black Room. This is the podcast for all things erotic mind control, and we are your hosts. I am Callidus, joined as always by Madam Kistulot. Welcome back, MK. Winter break is over.
It's been a heck of one, but I'm really glad to be back into the swing of things.
You and I both, and it's been, as we have just discovered while we've been trying to prepare the show, but instead mostly just been yakking our heads off. We have missed talking to each other, missed talking to you all listening, and thank you for joining us. We're sorry it's been so long, but it's just sort of life and sickness and just all kinds of stuff that gets in the way of the fun from time to time.
Here's hoping it's not nearly so long again in the future.
I agree with you. Let's commit to that, and it shouldn't be, because we have we have so much exciting stuff to talk about in this episode and in future episodes as well, because we can't possibly fit all the erotic mind control smutty goodness into one episode of the Black Room podcast. So you can definitely look out for more. This is episode number 20 of the Black Room, which, you know, that's a double-digit milestone worth mentioning. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not suggesting that we break out the adult beverages or anything just yet. Maybe 50, but 20 is a nice round number, and we've made it here. So, congratulations to us.
Yeah, still definitely worth feeling good about and showing that how much we've gotten through.
Yeah, I'm sipping tea at the moment. If you hear any wayward sounds, that is me fighting off a little something. But we're going to power through it to talk about some, because as I said, we cannot possibly get through everything, but some of the amazing erotic mind control smutty goodness that is going on in the world of erotic mind control smut these days. Starting with, to no one's surprise, some updates from the foundation of our fetish and community, the Erotic Mind Control Story Archive. There's been some really fun stuff going up there, and not just from my illustrious co-host. So, Madam Kistulot, if you would.
So there's been the scene on the EMCSA just over time has naturally changed. We've had great writers come and go. Some of them unfortunately just disappeared into the wind. Some have been lost, unfortunately. But recently, thankfully, every time we lose somebody, sooner or later we get somebody that's just great and has all kinds of eager new energy. Mm-hmm. And recently we managed to steal one away from the fanfiction scene, specifically Dr. D, who has just been knocking it out of the park with some really amazing original mind control fiction that is honestly some of the best stuff I've seen on the archive in a very, very, very long time. I mean,
I second that.
I'm pretty biased when I say that, I'm super, Canary is still something that I'm crying it's not finished yet.
Every week I go there and I scroll immediately to the C's to see if it's there.
But this is it's a very different style of writing. Dr. D, what's really hilarious is, I'm going to let you all in on a little bit of a secret. You meet Doc, and she is the most irreverent, goofy, silly, just the most ridiculous sort of person you're ever going to meet, in the best way.
Our kind of people.
Exactly. But you read this writing, and it's like poetry in the best of ways. It just flows amazingly. And Philanthropist, the first work they put on the archive, is a really great sort of contemporary, sort of I was looking for, story with sort of a metahuman superhero backdrop. And it's amazing. Yeah. But I've been slowly working my way through it rings for thee due to I want to be reading through this already, right now, because it's so good. But I keep getting distracted from it by reality, but it's amazing.
Damn that reality and all the annoyance it brings.
It's so bad, especially when you've got such amazing stories of twisted. Medieval's not the right word, but high fantasy. Just being, it's so amazing. We haven't had anything on the archive like this since Iago and Tabaco were together last.
And it's appropriate that you mention them, because as Dr. D points out in her liner notes for this series, it's and just to give it a little bit of context right at the top, It Rings for Thee is it's 3 parts right now, 3 chapters right now. I get the impression that there's more to come. We'll see.
Yes.
And she says that inspired by the works of Tabaco, and to my mind, probably the Tabaco story that it most strongly resonates with is, and I'm going to forget the name of it, I'm going to have to go looking for it now, but the one that takes place within the sort of the Olathoi witch queen sort of Middle Earth setting that Tabaco did a few things in, but there's one that I'm trying to remember in particular that it's about a town that's being occupied by the Dark Queen's forces.
Loosing of the Dark.
The Loosing of the Dark, thank you. That is it. This story, to me, has vibes of that one. And I would love to talk to Dr. D and pick her brain about this a little bit, because to me, it feels as if this story could almost be a distant, chronologically speaking, like a distant in time sort of sequel to that. Like, it almost feels like this story could be happening generations later from the events of the Loosing of the Dark. Just the way that, and that may not be the case at all. That really may just be my sort of fan daydream. But there's so many little things that to me feel like, oh, that's kind of an Easter egg, like that's kind of a callback to this, or that's sort of a reference to that, and so on. It's fantastic.
No, and it's really amazing. I've been lucky enough to get to, like, Dr. D was an old fan of mine. We connected like ages ago, so we've been talking amidst like everything. I actually got to meet them somewhat recently, like in person, and just, I wasn't able to read this beforehand, but I've read Philanthropist. I was already fawning over how they're just like an amazing new voice, because like they've only got the two things out right now, and I'm hoping they'll be posting for many years to come. So send fan mail, because that's how you get people to keep doing this stuff.
Me too.
It's so the imagery in Loosing of the Dark or not Loosing of the Dark. I just what I have right in front of me right now, because
it rings for thee.
It Rings for Thee is just so amazingly wonderful. The way it mingles twisted and wrong with, this is like so horrible, and I am just damp as fuck because of it. And it's just so, while still managing to be just lyrical and melodic without even skipping a beat.
No, the words are really something to behold. Dr. D has a style that is pretty unique and very compelling, very rich language, and really has a knack for imagery, really has a knack for painting a picture with words and just giving your imagination all that it needs to bring that to life.
Definitely. And while there's plenty, like, does the good job of not, like, you never get just like a wall of here's a bunch of little details and oh right, there was a story here, which is like drives me crazy. And yet you can still get lost just in the descriptive language alone without like feeling like you're being ripped away from anything that's happening, because it's all being weaved together. And it's just like, prose like this is kind of, I used to, like, if you asked me like 10-15 years ago, I would have screamed because I was like dumb and silly. But this is just so beautiful.
Which of us?
I think I would have even had to agree back then.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so completely beautiful and so
it is
hot. Like, it's everything in there. Like, you've got just like some good, just solid writing for, like, it's an interesting fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Where like the terminology is being used is just demanding you to like wonder, oh, I wonder what that exactly means, or I wonder what like the culture behind this, like why this would come, because it's all, even just from the first part, you can tell very quickly that this has been methodically thought over and planned. Like, this world is real.
Yes, you can. I agree with you. You can really feel the world building, which is one of my favorite parts of any sort of mythology. That's one of the things that I found most fun. I think any of us would agree. You know, anybody that's ever done that sort of thing in their own work, that's one of the most fun things that you can do is to really just envision all the little gears in your world and how they fit together, from the geographic elements to the political forces that are working within this, and all of those kinds of things. You can definitely feel the depth of those aspects in this 3-part story.
Yeah, and that's that alone would be like worth, I would say, read it just for that. But then, I mean, all the stuff that you'd want to read from an FFMC story is just amazing. The raw physical descriptions, the just overpowering twisted, slow burn. There is nothing rushed to here, and yet
No.
you're not just waiting.
No, I agree. And the thing that I was going to say, going back to something that you said a moment ago, is that the story, the narrative itself, I mean, that Dr. D is crafting, it really allows for meditation on some of this terrific prose, because so much of the drama is internal. So much of the drama is what is happening in the lead character Theodora's head, and what she's experiencing and how she's reacting to the events that are going on outside of herself.
Yeah.
Because so much of that drama is internalized, it makes these really graphic prose sections not seem like a distraction at all, but it really takes you from point A to B and so forth as you move through it in a very, very natural way. I think I agree with you. I think the pacing is superb, and it speaks to experience and craft. It clearly comes from someone who has experience at doing this and writing these well-crafted stories, because it would be very easy to get lost in that and to feel like, well, this is nice word, or these are nice words, but I don't really care. I'd like to kind of get back to what was going on. I feel like I'm missing out on the story that was taking place, and you never feel that way.
No. And like, if anything, it's just more, just give me more of this. This is really good. Can I have more of this, please?
Yes. As a matter of fact, if there's anything that I could say to Dr. D at this moment, it would be, I would like more of this, please. And if you would like to say that to Dr. D, make sure and hit her up on Twitter. She is Doc D Writes. That's DOCDWRITES at Doc D Writes on Twitter. She also has a Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com page, which I'm not familiar with, but I gather is a little bit like Patreon, in that it is a way of supporting artists.
Yep, it just lets you do one-times, which would be great if Patreon let you do.
I totally agree with you. I feel like Patreon has so missed the boat on just adding an option. You come across something and you really like it, and you say, perhaps it's not something that interests you enough that you're going, perhaps it's like a podcast episode as an example, and there's an interview subject on there you're particularly interested in. You're not going to subscribe to the podcast every week, but you're so impressed with that one episode that you would like to just thank them for the effort and send them a little something. Patreon has no facility to do that, which they need to address.
You just need to set yourself a Google reminder or cross your fingers. It's really silly. Also, drdirector@gmail.com is a good email spot for her, just because Twitter's great, but as an author myself, I can definitely say that Twitter is so easy to miss, but an email, I'm never going to miss that unless something goes horribly wrong.
Agreed. So anyway, if you are inclined to support Dr. D and her amazing erotic mind control fiction, ko-fi.com/Dr. D. And that's just DOCTORD. All right. Moving on to another recent story from actually, let me click over to this real fast and let's just see, because I don't remember when. Okay, so there's an artist that relatively recent, going back to last summer is when we first start seeing posts from an author called MoldedMind. They had a new story recently called Addicted. Went up to the archive on March the 9th. And they've got 5 in total now, going back, as I said, to last May. And there's something about this author's work that has really, really captured my imagination. And I'm trying to think of a way to describe this. I think that what these stories represent, that at least tickles my fancy, is these are really interesting sort of concept pieces. I think that that's the best way to describe it, in the sense that you can read these stories and you kind of see, or at least imagine, the machinations behind it. The author said, what would be an interesting concept for a mind control story is if, so a woman walks into this place and then this happens and voila, mind control erotica. And then they kind of take that that synopsis and build around it. I would say I imagine that's how it works because in a lot of cases that's how I work. That's how a lot of my stuff sort of comes to be. And
Same.
I look at these stories and I don't know, they feel of a similar flavor, I suppose. And I found myself really tickled with what has come about. I actually don't want to talk about the most recent story, Addicted, although there is an aspect of it that is kind of fun. But one of the stories that I really, really dig is this story from June of last year called Dazzled. I'll read you the synopsis here. Alice is cornered and captivated by a very uniquely placed diamond, which is pretty vague. But
Yeah.
if any of you know me, and MK definitely knows me, you might have a clue where that diamond is. It might even be 2 diamonds, and you might now have a clue where those diamonds are because I'm a sucker for these things, as Alice turns out to be. Spoiler warning.
To be fair, there's technically 4, though we don't get to see all of them.
That's true. I think we only see 3, but there are definitely 4. But it's a delightful little story. It's like I said, it's kind of a concept piece. It's what I would describe as sort of a vignette style story, in that it is mostly just a scene that occurs. And again, I feel sort of a kinship there, where a lot of my stuff tends to be that way.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love some of the language, like especially the woman that Alice encounters in Dazzled. And I'll go ahead and spoil a little bit. What happens is Alice encounters a dominant, mind-controlling woman in the ladies' room somewhere, in a women's restroom somewhere.
Yeah.
And some of the dialogue that the dominant character has is fantastic. I really, really, really dig some of the I don't know, like slightly, humiliating kinds of things that she says to Alice as she's kind of taunting her and, saying like, oh, you could have left, but here you are doing this instead. And, those kinds of aspects. I really like that kind of stuff. And I found it very, very fun.
Oh, yeah, no. The way that those moments like that, where you have a character just basically going, you're so fucked that you're just like sitting here and this is the thing you said you hated, but that must mean this is true instead.
Right.
There's nothing really more directly potent that I can think of offhand. It's humiliation used to control, and the control used to humiliate all in the same moment. It just builds on itself so well.
Yeah, it's true. That's something that I can think of Trilby. Well, actually, I think that's even something in Bond. Tracy says to Pamela, she says trance logic.
Yes.
And there's an aspect of that going on there. But anyway, MoldedMind, I have not read all of their stories. As I said, there's 5. I've only read these 2, Addicted and Dazzled. But I got a real kick out of them. And there's an interesting little bit of parallel in the sense that Addicted is about a woman who tries to use these like hypnosis files, these audio files or whatever, to cure herself of smoking, and come to find out someone sort of eavesdrops and figures out that she might be susceptible to other suggestions while under hypnosis. And away they go with that sort of fun. And the combination of that idea of sort of like, the accidental hypnotic victim, combined with the setting of the women's restroom in Dazzled, reminds me of this manip I did many, many years ago called Ladies' Room, and it was about a woman who accidentally got hypnotized and controlled while eavesdropping in a ladies' room. And I was reading through these and just sort of seeing some of those elements filtered through another artist's creativity was very, very neat. And seeing where MoldedMind takes their stuff was just a really fun journey. So that's a plug that I wanted to make sure and get in. You should go check them out over at mcstories.com.
Definitely. And I'm just going to reiterate this for anything you ever read on the archive. I mean, if someone has a Patreon or something, like Callie, another really great writer that we have up and coming going around, I have to talk about some of their stuff sometimes. They're doing just some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
If they have a Patreon, cool. If they have a Ko-Fi or something like that, great. But email is free, and don't worry. I know it can seem really scary. There is not a writer alive that doesn't just love that email. Worst case scenario, if you don't get a response, it's probably just because they didn't see it. Reach out. People will be super happy to hear from you.
That is absolutely true. And if you do want to get in touch with MoldedMind on Patreon, if you're interested in supporting more of their work, they do have a Patreon at patreon.com/MoldedMind. They also had a Tumblr called MoldedMind Posts, but as I try to pull it up now, it's giving me the Tumblr safe mode, so I don't know how much of their Tumblr has survived the purge, and we're going to talk about the purge a little bit later. But first, more naughtiness. This time from Uzobono. I wonder at times if we will ever do an episode of this podcast that does not mention Uzobono in some way.
I mean, I guess no, because I'm thinking my first response is to naturally go, well, if they stop, I guess we have to. But then no, because if they stop, we're gonna have to go. Don't you miss when there was more Uzobono?
That's true. That's true. We'll just talk about how much we missed them then.
Yeah. So no, you're stuck with us saying that every time.
Yep. Uzobono is back with a new comic book called The Division Black Helix. And if you've followed Uzobono over on DeviantArt, which it's deviantart.com/Uzobono, Uzobono. If you follow Uzobono on DeviantArt, she did a poll sometime back in which she asked her audience if they would be interested in seeing a sort of transgender or futanari themed book from her, or I don't think she quite phrased it that way. I think she said, would you be interested in seeing these themes or this concept come up in future work? And her audience resoundingly answered in the affirmative. And so Black Helix is kind of making good on that tease. So this is a one-off book. It takes place in the universe of The Division, which is Uzobono's solo comic series, as well as CORE, which is the collaboration series that she does with Tabaco that we've talked about so many times. It's a one-off book in those. It does not pertain to any of the established continuity. You can read it and not miss anything. And if this book happens and no follow-up ever occurs, that's fine. But it is a futanari-themed adventure set in that whole Division universe. And it's terrific. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's some really, really neat twists and turns sort of within the narrative. There's some amazing imagery, which obviously, if you've ever seen anything Uzobono does, you know that is common. There's some terrific imagery, and some of the core ideas of the story, the character, and the methods of control. And that's one of those things that, you know, I don't get up in arms about a story that on paper, in the synopsis, it may be everything that I want a story to be. It may check all the boxes, and yet once you actually get into it, there might be something about it that they just gloss over like the one or two things that I love about a particular scenario or trope or something like that. And I have to say that one of the things I find so delightful in Uzobono's work is that all of the things that she likes to explore are all of the things that I like to be explored. And this tale is no different. I love some of the ideas in the methods of control and the brainwashing apparatus and all that. It's really, really great stuff. So unless you just have no interest whatsoever in a futanari-themed... Am I pronouncing that right, by the way?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. No,
right.
Futanari.
That's fine. I was just trying to figure out how badly I was embarrassing myself now that
sometimes just shortened to Futa.
Yeah.
And like that's usually not really my cup of tea, but I haven't actually gotten around to reading this one yet either. I've been so terrible. But there is just some amazing, even just panels in this that I would heavily recommend taking a look, even if it's only kind of your thing, or even if it usually puts you off a bit, just because Uzobono is doing Uzobono's work, and it's not half-assed at all.
No, it is good stuff. So, in any case, if you have an interest in this, highly recommend you check it out. And if not, check out Uzobono anyway, because she does all kinds of other amazing mind control stuff over at her DeviantArt page, which I guess is kind of a great segue into what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah.
One of the things that Uzobono and Tabaco do, which I think is really neat, is after they put out an issue of CORE, the comic, which is up to issue 13 now, isn't it?
Yeah, wow.
The last, well, this is number 6, so I guess they've done this 6 times now, but they have begun to put out a questionnaire. After the book has been out for a week or so, they put out a questionnaire and just solicit feedback from their audience and ask things like, what did you like? What would you like to see more of? Did this make sense? That sort of thing. To something that I have threatened to do on the show a number of times is to fill out this questionnaire, because if you do, you get early access to the next issue of CORE. I have threatened to do it probably about 6 times and failed to do it every one because I'm horribly disorganized in most of my life. But this week, we are going to turn the beat around. Tell them what's going to happen, MK.
This week, we have that questionnaire in text in front of us, and we are going to answer those questions, if only just to get you interested in, this stuff's appealing to us, it's going to be interesting to you too. And we've got let's see here, it is 8 questions. We're just going to go through those today, and we'll get to the bottom of what made and continues to make this series so completely overly engaging.
Let's kick things off with question number 1, which is going to be to you, Madam Kistulot. What were your 3 favorite scenes from CORE issue number 13, and why? And if you need help coming up with any favorite scenes, I'm happy to help, but you go first.
Oh, yeah. No, it'd be pretty hard to have basically, I didn't go through this first to just count the number of scenes, so I couldn't say, it's hard to narrow it down just from those, but it's, CORE 13 is not it failed to live up to the previous issues at all.
No.
So
no.
I'm just going to have to say that there's been a lot of storylines going through everything from just how her friends are changing to how we're seeing more and more of the world, what the Hive's up to, what CORE itself is doing.
Right.
But the slow, not really so slow, really, but it wasn't just all at once. It hasn't been just demolish
the journey of Melanie. The journey of Melanie
Yes.
is what we're talking about here.
And that's probably over 3 scenes in this on its own.
Yeah.
Because you've got her working with CORE and subverting. You've got her utterly betraying someone who believes that she's there to help them.
Yes.
And you just got this... every step of the way with that, you're just watching her be more destroyed and just knowing that she's getting off on it.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
And
the final scene with Melanie, if I could interject for 1 second.
Oh, no. Please.
Basically, this is the issue. I mean, you've known that this has been coming. Like, you know that it was going to lead to here at some point. You knew that. This is the issue where Melanie finally turns evil mind controller, full out evil mind controller. Like, up until now, her role, the specific machinations, the actions that she was carrying out, kind of like, oh, Melanie, victim of mind control, doing smutty mind control things. This is the issue where, she's still doing that. That's still the case, except now, Melanie, evil mind controller / victim of mind control. Which, that's just like, a sub-fetish in and of itself right there.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, that last scene with Melanie is where she is taking the people who were looking to her for help, and now she is not only subverting them, but kind of making them get off on it as much as she is mind-meltingly hot. It is red-hot, fire-hot.
Plus, there's just something... I've always been a big fan of lab coats, and I'd never thought of one that was just transparent before.
Yes, that's just what the world needed, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm totally stealing that from you guys, sorry.
Yeah.
But, not really sorry at all. I don't think you will be either, I hope. But
we're the Reese Cups of podcast here. Sorry, not sorry.
No, but like seriously, just Melanie's arc in this has been absolutely like nothing short of amazing, and
Yeah.
this, just the way this has spent through, though, I have to say I would be lying if I didn't say though the bit with Tammy and
Yep.
this
I
that
can't remember
early
the
bit.
character's name, like the new sort of doctor that's on the team now that now that Dr. Exus is out of the picture.
It's just so priceless.
I
It's
love
so
that
good.
that scene. So essentially, what you have there is you have. Well, I don't know. I almost don't want to spoil it, but all right, I'm going to spoil it. So, spoiler warning for Core 13. Skip ahead about a minute if you don't want to hear anything. The scene where Melanie and the doctor are playing, essentially, you know, they're just two lovers role playing this sort of mind control fantasy scene. But someone overhears it. Someone sort of eavesdrop and sees what's going on. And that moment where Melanie goes and gets that person. And so now, you know, they kind of cross that threshold. They go from being a voyeur to being a participant. Super hot. And they're now going to be kind of a part of this role playing, in quotes. And then, like, the last moment of that scene, when the doctor, you know, holds up this sort of hypnotic jewel, which up until now you've just assumed is a prop because, you know, they've ordered like these costumes and they're doing dress up, and, you know, it's all very cute and awesome the way that you see these two characters connecting. And then the very last thing that happens is the doctor sort of holds up this jewel and actually starts to hypnotize the newcomer. And, you know, the jewel begins to glow green, and suddenly her face begins to lose expression as she falls into trance. You're like, oh snap! What's going on here? Has she really, in fact, become sort of the evil mind controller that she was only playing at? It's a really, really neat little. It's a really neat little cliffhanger, sort of in that emerging story, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely is, and just honestly, Tammy's evolution over the course of the series has been great, and
Yeah.
Nicole's bit here, like I feel bad that like if this wasn't such a, if there weren't so many scenes to choose from, then you know it would be a lot easier to just be like, well, yeah, no, like you have to include like seeing more of how Nicole's doing, just because
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying that on a purely like narrative level, just
Yeah.
because the sort of, as she mentioned, she has the memories of her, but like, who is she? What
Who
is
is
she?
she?
I love that.
I do too. I was thinking specifically in this issue, it feels like they are building towards doing a more Nicole specific arc with, you know, with Nicole in this issue, sort of asking these questions of herself, saying, you know, so I've got this, you know, heavily genetically modified body. I have this robot brain. I have the memories of someone called Nicole Sue. Where does that leave me? Who am I as a person? Where do I go? Where do I go from here? And it feels like asking those questions in this issue is going to lead to answering those questions in future issues, which I can't wait to read.
No, that is, I am right there with you. It's such a great moment for that, and I just realized like right now, like it's been the way that every character that's become useful has weaved through other characters' stories. You never really feel like someone's not carrying their weight or being neglected.
Right.
But basically, since she got synthed up, brain wise at least,
Yeah.
there hasn't been like a different, like a lot of focus on what's going to be happening next for her. And this, thinking about that now, I'm super into seeing how that's going to go, because like Tammy's evolution and where she's comfortable now has been great. And
Yeah. Same with Melanie.
it's kind of, yeah, no, and it's like it's a little bit sad that we kind of don't have like Nicole for some of this, but at the same time, it's like, super hot. I don't care,
You know,
and I do, because I'm into it.
Yes, I am as well, and I think that what has to happen, and I, you know, I haven't talked to Tabitha about this. I have no idea where she's going with it, but I'm just speculating here.
Yeah.
That to me it feels like what will need to happen is Nicole will need to go through some sort of evolution as a character in a way that sort of puts her back in play, if you will.
Yeah, no, I can see what you mean.
Similar to how Tammy, you remember there was the whole sort of like the reset, like they kind of hit the reset button on Tammy. I don't know how many, maybe 4 or 5 issues ago, where Tammy, you kind of found out about Tammy's backstory a little bit, and she was able to break free of the control that she had been under at that time.
Yeah.
And so by breaking free of that, it frees her up to now experience new kinds of mind control threats. And I think that something similar needs to probably happen with Nicole. That,
And I think it's not like a matter of like needs to happen. It could be terrible. It's already happening. Like we can
Yes.
see this, like where
Yeah.
it's going to.
yeah,
We
the
just want it to
evolution's
happen.
already started. Okay, you want to move on to question 2?
Oh well, unless there's any other scenes that like stand out to you too, because like I asked, but like if there's any other scenes that I missed,
No,
because
not really. Well, actually, we don't. We talked about sort of Melanie's, and then we talked about Tammy's. Sammy. Okay, so Sammy is the bunny girl that is now part of the troop, and Sammy is such a. She is such a sort of naive, carefree sort of character, and she comes across as just all she wants to do is please. All she wants to do is to help out her new friends and do a great job. And she's just so excited to be taking part in what's going on. And that scene where she mercilessly enslaves the patron in the coffee shop, which I love I love the whole sort of like the the pheromone control method that we're seeing for the second time now. I loved that back when we first saw it. The fact that we're getting more of it is great. But I really like that scene. It kind of creeps up on you, like sort of how wrong and hot it gets. Like you're kind of coming along, going like, "Oh, like Sammy's gonna get into a little bit of trouble here. This should be. Oh, damn." That's kind of how it goes.
because like she, especially if you compare her to like her sisters back where they met her, like she seemed like so completely benign and like,
Right.
understanding of how
Right.
that wasn't such a great thing. And it's like, oh, this girl's sad. I will fix everything forever.
Yes, exactly. I will help her not be sad by becoming my blissful, mindless slave. It's
I
great.
mean, what more can you ask for?
That's right. I
And
love
that scene was great too.
It was really hot. I like that a lot though. Okay, so that's 3, right? That's 3.
Yeah, no, definitely 3.
All right. Those are our 3 from issue 13.
Let's see here for you this time. Starting off, and this was specifically written as coming from Tavico. The main narrative was about Laurel and Tisha, or Tisha? Yeah, we said Tisha.
Yeah, we're going to say Tisha.
Laurel and Tisha. But I interleaved that with other scenes about Tammy, Nicole, and of course the Sammy subplot. Do you think that adding these other scenes makes the issue better or not?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Are we done?
No.
Yes.
I mean, basically, like I think that we can summarize this with the more you give us, the better it is. You're not like. It doesn't feel like whenever there's something else in there, it ever detracts from anything else. So,
No.
I mean, please, just give us more.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I would say just to dive on this a little bit more is that what I love is when you get to see, because I don't, this is going to sound a little silly perhaps, but it's like a real comic book in quotes.
Yeah. No.
I love when you can track individual characters through their own journeys, their own individual little slices of drama, mind control drama in this case, that they are going through. I love to have that ability to relate to the characters in a one-on-one way, and not just when those characters are being utilized to tell a bigger story. Well, it's similar to what we were just saying about Nicole a few minutes ago. Nicole, for several issues now, Nicole has mostly been sort of a character that's fulfilled a certain device, a necessary sort of device within the story. Like, as an example, when the whole sort of slug bug episode happens, Nicole is going to be immune to that. And so, like, the way that they have to sort of deal with that and everything, it basically is just Nicole is kind of a in that instance Nicole is sort of like a plot device that has to be dealt with, but the hints or the scene in this issue where you're really kind of seeing Nicole's personal journey and everything, I love that stuff. So yes, absolutely, we love to see these characters going on their own journeys and developing as individual characters, but then also seeing how they develop within the larger narrative, as friends, as a group, as the story progresses. We love all of that. Please don't stop.
No, please, more character moments, more character growth, more.
More.
Like seriously, we've been talking about how hot this is, but the writing's just really solid, and the way it's being visualized, just more.
Just more. Question 3. What dialogue quips or visual touches stood out and particularly pleased you? Ooh, like how do you pin down just one?
Well, I can't pin down just one. Like it's going to have to be one of those things where it's like, well, we've got this. But luckily, we brought one up earlier that I just knew as soon as I saw this question to have to touch on.
Yeah.
It's the second page with Tammy and in their little role play scenario.
Yeah.
Where we have the moment of now then you will
right
dance for you.
Yeah.
And just that moment of just like I'm staring down at you. I'm swaying this pendulum. I know there's a line I'm supposed to
I'm trying to think of what I'm supposed to say next.
And then just the perfect visualization of the I'm staring at you, I can't believe you forgot this. Right. And then just the dying laughing. It's so well captured.
It's so real too. I mean, I have experienced things like this where you're trying to sort of be in the moment and quote unquote in character, and you realize that you've completely lost the thread of where you thought you were going, and you're like trying to figure out like, what do I say now to kind of keep the scene going or whatever. It's so real.
Yeah, it's that one's like the one that's gonna just like always, like when I think about this one, it's gonna stand out just as far as like just really good solid firm quips.
Yeah.
I
really like the one on page 3 where Sammy is delivering tea to the two ladies that are in the coffee shop there, the cafe. And she comes over, she sets tea down for one person, tea for you, and tea for you, and then she says, Sammy's servicing is complete, and then here it comes. Please enjoy your steepings. Which, as a tea drinker, that really makes me smile inside my mind. That is very, very cute.
That is solid. That is completely solid. Yeah, I'm not the biggest for tea, but that is still like I love. That highlights the way that the writing and the art does a really great way of communicating the way that Sammy is not human and also kind of not dialed in to other people's reactions or the world she's in. Like she's completely been like taken out of the jungle and thrown into the city, and she's doing fine because she doesn't notice, like she's not feeling that I'm so different here, which is kind of priceless in its own right, and that's a great little moment to capture that.
Yes, I agree. Another moment, it's sort of a scene, but there are a couple of lines of dialogue that I would just point out real fast, but it's basically in the Melanie becomes an evil mind controller scene that we were talking about a minute ago, where she takes one of the women that she is betraying and she gets her all turned on and then makes her press the button to begin enslaving her friend. And she says, Laurel, betray your friend, obey the hive. Click.
Honestly, just Melanie, that whole scene. Get away from her, as you wish. You're going to be first anyway.
Yes.
Or just the way she's just so flippantly not giving a shit.
Oh man, it is hot. Okay, so that's on page, just for the sake of, that is on page 180, and then 2 pages later, this exchange is same girl, Laurel. Now Melanie is actively pleasuring her while they're watching her friend get synthed, and Melanie is just like, she's starting to get this woman turned on by the whole prospect of enslavement and synthification and everything. She says, they're going to fill your brain with implants. You'll be more like a machine than a woman, mindless and enslaved. Now then, slave, get on your knees and service your oppressor. Like, and I'm done. Drop the mic, or Tabaco's done. Tabaco, drop the mic, walk out of the room. That is just scorching hot. I love that line.
No, that is completely solid. I am all there for this.
All right. You ready to move on?
Yeah, no, I mean, like everything in here is just completely great and solid, and just like honestly, Melody's dialogue in this whole section, she just does not give a fuck, and it's amazing.
Oh, I know, it's
more of that.
More. It's interesting how many of these answers are more.
Yeah.
All right.
No, seriously. What questions has core number 13 left you with is our next question.
Okay. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One of them I'll say for the next question because I think that it's a little bit more appropriately answered there. But and I wish I could remember her name. The doctor character that we were talking about, that she and Tammy are playing together early in the issue. Let me just thumb through real fast and see if her name comes up there. But the doctor character, the way things get left with her, where suddenly you have this moment where she goes from playing at being a mind controller to there's this sudden hint of maybe she actually is a mind controller. I am very, very interested to see what is going on there.
Yeah.
And I guess the question in my mind is, does she have and has she had an ulterior motive ever since she's been introduced into the books? Or does she simply have a newfound sort of mind control fetish of her own? And in either case, where does that lead next? Now that we know that, I say we know, now that it's been hinted that she might actually be controlling minds within CORE, where does that go next? Whether it's the ulterior motive or whether it's a little bit more of a benign thing, that seems like fertile ground to explore. So that's my question. What happens next with her? And then, as we've already talked, what happens next with Nicole? I think that's something I'm very, very interested to see as well. What about you?
No, I completely. Yeah, I was going to say, like, my main thought right now, and not just because we were just talking about it, because Nicole's been a character I've really enjoyed. I mean, she went from really, like, being the too smart for her own good, getting pulled into things, being controlled into wanting this to happen, then being just obliterated, and then being kind of half brought back in this weird state, and just I don't even know what would happen next, and I don't think any of the options would be bad. I mean, she seems the most likely to actually be able to solve a large number of the problems,
right?
But I kind of don't foresee that being allowed to happen, which means what problem is she either going to stumble into or create?
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, it reminds me of this, I can't even remember the name of this, but there was a cartoon series that was on in the 80s that I think was probably like a Japanese anime that they adapted into a television show for North America.
Yeah.
And there was this sort of robot girl who was one of the characters on the show, and a little bit of a Pinocchio syndrome. And there was an episode where she became real, like became flesh and blood. And in the course of doing that, she discovered that she couldn't as effectively do her job, basically. And I think, it was something kind of very rudimentary, like her fingers are flying over the buttons and she's getting blisters as she's trying to, work a control panel or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's this whole sort of, I mean, the underlying sort of theme is don't be so obsessed with what you are not and enjoy what it is that you are, rather than trying to be something else. I mean, like, that's sort of the fundamental drama involved in that.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see a possibility for that with Nicole, where Nicole's a character that could very, very easily have a little bit of this Pinocchio syndrome, this desire to be a real person, in quotes. But if that happens, and we've seen several times now, I mean, with the bunny girls, with the slug bugs, Nicole is a really, really useful character to have around when the gang gets embroiled in some of these situations. And if Nicole sort of loses what makes her immune to those things, then it takes on dimensions of this drama where, okay, she kind of got what she wanted, but there's a downside to it as well. And so I could see some neat things happening with that.
And I'm still kind of wondering exactly what the Hive's long game is here, because
Me
like
too.
the slug bug thing being kind of set up, like they mentioned, like we were expecting better from them. This is just disappointing.
Right.
Like it begs the question, well, what do you want then? Because they're like, you're at odds with them, but clearly this shows that like at least you feel there's some purpose that having them in some kind of state is useful. So what do you want from them? Which is less from just this issue by itself, but since it doesn't show us, I'm still thinking about it, because just clearly the Hive has some greater purpose for like allowing CORE to still exist.
Yeah, and I would like to see that question answered. The other thing that I would like to see is, I'd like to see what Dr. Exus is up to, or specifically Dr. Exus's clone.
Yes.
I would like to see which I believe, certainly from the sort of the coda scene that she appears in way back when, it seems as though she's got, I don't know, like a memory footprint up to a certain point of time, and she knows that by the fact that she has been sort of rejuvenated as a clone, that something must have gone wrong in the plan, and that's all we kind of know right now. But I would love to steer back around to her at some point and to see what she is up to, and is she looking to get revenge or further her plans or what. I'm very, very curious to maybe see the return of Dr. Exus in a future issue.
She has been the one that actually pissed off the Hive the most.
That's true. She absolutely has. And the fact that she was able to do that speaks to just how formidable a character she is.
She basically almost took down everyone. So
almost.
It would be interesting to see how... It will be interesting, because I know that like this stuff's not... like something's going to come of all this. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You're asking next.
What would you like to see in future issues, characters, story arcs, plot developments? We kind of went a little bit over that before, but like by all means, please, if anything else got left out.
Nothing jumps to mind right now that we haven't already talked about. Just more. The answer to question number 6 is more.
Yeah.
Okay. So question 7, are there practices that other comic style artists and writers are using that we should study and maybe make use of? Please provide examples. You got any thoughts here?
Please don't learn about retconning. I literally honestly never read a comic book before I started writing comic book fiction. Oh no, not true. I never read them en masse. I've read like one or two here or there. But like when I started doing research, and it's most a problem by like the big two, but a lot of people do it. Basically, if you realize you've accidentally run into a corner, and this is more of a don't, but like I can't think of anything, like I don't read enough anymore, and I've never read enough to be able to say something that's better than like this in terms of writing.
But don't pull out like, oh, it was a Skrull this whole time. Like it was a Skrull impersonating this character for the last 12 issues. Like, don't do that, is what you're saying.
To be fair, this is a series where that could actually work, but just keep it internally consistent.
Right.
And don't like fudge things to make it so like it's just show respect for your readers, which you've already done. So just keep up what you're doing. You're doing great. I have no way to tell you to do something better right now.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure that I'm really at a position where I can offer you too much advice in this way, because you're doing so good without me. So I don't want to mess up the batter. And risk the cake not baking. But one thing I will say, just on the idea of retconning, one of my favorite scenes in the entire run of CORE is the scene, and you know the one I'm talking about, the scene where they CORE decide that the fact that Melanie is not sexually interested in women is a problem that they need to address, and then they follow up by putting her together with, they sort of arrange that encounter in the coffee shop. She goes home with that girl with the tattoos and the lovely hair. Anyway.
Yes.
And while they are like, after the sort of the reveal that like, oh yeah, I'm part of CORE too, haha, after the reveal of that, and the scene where Melanie describes her retconned memory, where Melanie describes all of these various encounters that she's had with CORE that we've seen in the books, except now in her mind they take place from the perspective of a person who is just, dripping at the thought of being enslaved by core and being synthed and all of that. Like where her memories have been twisted into fetishizing what has happened to her.
Yeah.
That is one of the best ideas that maybe has come along in this whole book. I love that. So if you are ever going to do retcon, I'm not really talking to Tabitha Uzobono, I'm just talking to anybody who's listening. If you are going to do retconning, that's the way you do it. Because you get to have your cake and eat it too, essentially.
No, complete. Like, that's make characters unreliable narrators.
Yes.
Do that, please.
Yes.
Oh, that's not used nearly enough in mind control fiction. I mean, because especially if you have a story being told like first person or even vaguely, like someone's telling a story, it doesn't need to be true. In fact, how it's false is do more of this.
Is the best part. Yes. So anyway, we like that. All right. Last question. It's yours.
Blondes, brunettes, or redheads?
Redheads. Obviously, because it does
I'm wondering
not.
why we don't have white here.
Well, I mean, we can argue over it. We can argue. I mean, you can make the case, but I say redheads because there is not a complexion of skin from what we have here on Earth right now to green and purple and blue and all that red does not go well with. Is my position on the subject. Like green.
You're not
wrong. Green skinned girls from Star Trek. Blue skinned girls from Star Wars, whatever. Red hair works on everybody.
You're not wrong.
So
I might have to redact that, but I mean, I'm going to go with, because obviously white's not an option here. I'd have to go in that direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're not wrong. Definitely for villains, I'm going with red, though that's probably not the hardest guess in the world.
True.
But yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Okay.
But I'm the person that just says yes.
Why don't we just answer this question more?
Yes. More hair colors to choose from and more women with them.
Yes.
And just we need more empirical evidence what we're getting at. We can't make a decision.
Quick to the internet for research.
Exactly. I'm sure I can find a Boru or two.
All right, so I think that we are going to summarize the CORE 6 questionnaire with the words yes, comma, more. That is our answers in summary.
Just like doing improv, yes and, only it's yes and give me more.
Right. Exactly right. Speaking of give me more, there is a YouTube channel. This is a weird one for me. This is a very weird one, but we're going to do it anyway. There is a YouTube channel that they have taken the message of yes, comma, more to heart and given it to us.
Ooh.
The YouTube channel is of one Serena Erickson, which is the weird part that I'll come back to.
Yeah.
But Serena Erickson's YouTube channel is chock-a-block full of some of the most iconic and hottest mind control scenes from film and television. Mostly television, but there's some film stuff in there as well. But mostly it's TV, and it's the greats. It's things like Heart to Heart and some of the iconic soap opera hypnosis scenes and things like that. Charlie's Angels and all that. So anyway, if you want to go and find some of your favorite, perhaps forgotten sort of scenes of mind control and TV from yesteryear, this YouTube channel is a great place to start. I can't give you the URL. They don't have a shortened URL. It will be in the show notes, the link, but if you also search for Serena Erickson on YouTube, you should find them. Serena Erickson Hypno would probably narrow it down maybe even a little bit more.
And it's always good to have like compilations of these kind of things because you can you're going to forget something and you're just going to come back through it as you're looking through others and just being like, okay, I remember. And then there's your afternoon. Yep,
pretty much. That which is how YouTube often works for people in general and of our ilk especially.
Oh, yeah.
The weird part about this, for me personally, is that one of my best friends in the world was a woman who called herself Serena Erickson. Her real name was Alina, and she's been dead for a number of years now. And for for the short time that we knew each other, she was about my best friend. And I have to say that there is something about this YouTube channel that creeps me out a little bit, because it kind of seems like the person who is running this channel has sort of assumed her identity. And even down to, like, if you look at the banner on the YouTube channel, it's full of, it's a collage. Like, the banner is a collage, and almost all the images were things that were images that were part of blog posts that she had made from her old Yahoo 360 blog. And it's, I'm probably one of just a handful of people that remembers her and is bothered by this, but it's very strange. It's just very, very strange to me. And there's a part of me that would love to daydream that, for reasons that she never explained to me, that she faked her death, and that really she's been alive all this time and off living her life happily and all that, and this YouTube channel is sort of, the last little outlet she has, and it's, sort of a wink and a nod, but that she's still out there. There's a part of me that would really, really love to believe that, but I don't, and so therefore I find it a little creepy. But if you're not me, and you don't have that kind of visceral reaction to seeing all of these images and words and ideas from your dead best friend's old blog, you're going to love it, because there is some awesome stuff. Awesome stuff contained. Like, there's almost 100 videos. I mean, it's like 93 or something like that. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of content on this channel, and it's all really, really good. So, for that sake, I bring it up to you all here.
Yeah, and that's definitely a complicated spot to be in, like, for anybody. But there is some good content there, and hey, like, if you are doing that as like some sort of a weird nod to somebody or something, or as like if whoever's running that, if it's sort of like an in memoriam, like, hey, like, there have been some great people that the MC community has lost over the years. I can think of Blank Page, Sarah Castle, Mesmerize, I believe. We've lost a lot of great creators, and like, if you're trying to do this like in tribute to just like somebody that was really cool, hey, like, put that somewhere. Like, that's totally cool, because we should be remembering the people that aren't around anymore. We might be a smutty community, but I mean, we can hold a tissue in one hand to cry, and for other purposes in the other. Like, we are a group that we can do both. So,
I would just like to say that my favorite quip from the Black Room episode 20 was Madame Kistulot's just now. That's one to write down and remember.
Yeah, and you think if I could think of stuff that good when I was writing.
Right. Okay, speaking of awesome things related to my esteemed co-host, Madame Kistulot, you've got a lot going on, because, as people may or may not be aware, you are a mad productive individual. And you've also been traveling quite a bit and meeting people like Dr. D, as you were just saying. So let's segue into a little of the section of the show all about you and what's going on with you. For those who don't know, I mean, I think most people understand that you've got a huge roster of stories. I mean, you've got one of the biggest catalogs of anyone on the Erotic Mind Control Story Archive. Do you have the biggest? Is there anybody that's got more than you right now?
Well, as far as like on the archive, I had Simon take my stuff down to make it easier to get stuff up on Amazon. But like back before that, I still keep track of these numbers because I have to, because I'm that person. But there was, let's see, Jukebox, Lisa T's, Dark Song, J Dark Song, and there's like 2 or 3. There was actually like a fair few people with higher story count, and I think even word count, but it was a small number. Like, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but that was always something I was kind of proud of.
But like, you're easily in the top 10 written most stories on the archive ever, easily, and probably in the top 5, probably. Yes?
Yeah, at least I know with word count I am. Okay. I don't know for complete sure for number.
Okay, so anyway, the point is that this is a person who knows how to be productive. This is a woman who knows how to write, that we're talking to right now.
Thank you.
And as you just sort of teased there, in addition to the stuff that you have done on the Erotic Mind Control Story Archive, you have also branched out in recent years into selling on Amazon, and not just self-publishing ebooks, but you have actually physically published some of your stories. You have, those books are in your hands on your shelf right now. Physical books by Madame Kistulot that average schmoes like myself could own, read, and appreciate. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm actually holding the author, like the first like sort of demo copy I got of Silver Girl right now, just because I was looking at something to show off a thing about we had to fix the cover, so I've like had it handy. It's been really exciting to be able to see that and to have like people on Twitter and like back on Tumblr, which will come back up again later, like having pictures of the books, and it's been really really thrilling to have those. And while I'm still continuing to publish on EMCSA. I might be examining what exactly is
You've
going
got a
up
new
in that
chapter up this
direction.
week, as a matter of fact, don't you? In this last update, you had a new one.
Yep. Yep. In a dream, and after that, it's going to be coming up pretty. Because I think there's still another part of that to go. I think that goes up to 4. There's going to be in a glance where we finally get to look at Heart of Gold again, which I'm super looking forward to that one being up because I just adored writing it. Um, it might still keep going in the Midas direction, it might not, but there's definitely been a lot still going in that direction. I don't want to stop contributing to the EMCSA anytime soon, and branching out onto Amazon has kind of given me a new place to sort of learn from, and also kind of given me a lot of reason to go back and revisit a lot of my older works that I wrote with maybe not as much focus as I should have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all part of the process. It's all part of the journey, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
you're always getting better. And I just have to take a very brief moment to like thank Thrall or A Regina Cantatus on there, because basically her doing it is what got me doing it, because it was like, wait, you can do that? I sent an email. It was very encouraging, her response. So like I can't be thankful enough for
No,
that.
she's fantastic. She is such a wonderful person and such a talent like yourself.
Definitely, like just amazing writer, and the world's suffering while she's taken some R&R, but it's earned, and I look forward to when she's able to get back to it.
Me too, and I'm sure you and I aren't speaking only for the two of us.
Oh no, I've talked to other people about it all the time.
So let's talk a little bit about stuff you've got going on right now. One question that I have for you, and maybe other people do too, because I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that the world building that you have done over the last, what, 15, almost 20 years now is, I mean, it's massive. It's on the scale of comic runs that have, been going on for decades and decades and decades. That, the characters and all of that exploration that you have done in the, I guess, sort of the Silver Girl. What do you actually call your mythos? Like when you think about it in your mind, like what is the name of it?
It sort of depends on how I'm feeling at the moment, because I sort of like it sort of started out like sort of Silververse in my head, but then like there's so many more characters than that, and she's not important to all of the stories. Like in the grand scheme of things, if you think about from the sake of the world, she's kind of not very important. Like she is, but compared to like everyone else, it's not. So I sort of took more towards Midasverse, just because Midas City was like the main central location for most of what I'm writing in it.
That kind of unifies everything pretty nicely.
Yeah,
so
even though like, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Because there are some other people that are sort of in the same thing, and they're not necessarily in Midas. I actually stole the name. I'm going to give credit here where it's due, from the writer Decker, who wrote Psyche versus The Lash, and Psyche versus Robotica, and Fractal. And I believe there was versus MCU. And I hadn't written in the very first story a name of the city she was in, and Decker and I got to bullshitting. There's actually a reference to Silver Girl in versus Fractal, the second of the Psyche series. And because, hey, they're in the same city anyway, why don't I just crib this name? I probably should have poked about that, but I mean, it's been
in hindsight.
Hey,
that's worked out okay, I think.
I think so.
So my question is, for those who may not be aware, talk a little bit about what's going on with what I'm going to call the Silver Girl rewrite series.
Yeah, it's so basically back in 2005. Just for sake of background, I wrote the first draft of the Adventures of Silver Girl and never edited it. And it was originally actually posted to DeviantArt. I took it down. It didn't really get much response there.
Right.
Mostly the only people that ever saw it were like my closest friends. It didn't actually get finished there, which is very obvious to some of the update schedule. Because the very end on the archive was even kind of, "Oops, I didn't actually finish writing this part yet. I thought I could do it fast enough." And it was kind of very hastily done. My conversion from more standard writing to how you do it for like the archive with the spaces between paragraphs was not very well done. So there's bits where you can't really tell who's talking if you're not paying close attention. And I had a problem that Mike Z, or Mike the Fable, a writer who's been around for quite some time, called Madame Kistulotting, which was in the description of. I love him for it because it was some mockery.
I totally want to have my name turned into a verb now. That just sounds great.
It was specifically for when in the middle of like a kiss or a glance or something, you have like 5 sentences of completely superfluous in like long description.
Right.
At least I think that was what it was. And I had a problem with paragraph sizing inside around that. Just it was fair.
It's all better now though. It got better.
Yeah. I wrote through. There's like 7 major arcs and way more stories, and I just kind of thought. I always told myself I would not let myself George Lucas the Silver Girl series. Like, it needed to be fixed up. It needed to be polished, but I was not going to add in all the special effects I always wanted.
Right.
Dust was not going to was going to remain shooting first. It's just, you can't change that. Besides, that edit is so garbage. I have to take a second to say that. It's just so bad.
Right.
But, I wasn't going to change anything. And when I started looking towards, hey, I can do stuff on Amazon, one of the things that convinced me was I could get paperbacks of the Silver Girl series, which meant I had to think about how I was going to do it. And I've kept to the format. Nothing scene-wise has changed, added, removed, rearranged. It's all the exact, like, for the sake of, if you're just going to read it for just story, then I would have to say, you might be disappointed it's the same story still. But as far as, like, the first one got, I want to say 98% longer, just in sake of I spent so little time on things that mattered and so much time on things that didn't. It actually has grammar fixed. Things are more consistent with later on. Because like in the first story, I had no idea what I was going to do. So Silver, how long she'd been doing heroing was very consistent with later stories. Because like later on it's revealed she's been doing this not very successfully since she was 16. And she's 23, which means that it's not really addressed how sometimes you don't just magically become a great superhero overnight.
Sometimes you work at it.
It's your daydream. And even then you don't do very well until something terrible happens to you. Yeah. And the first story, Silver Girl, The Adventures of Silver Girl, is on Amazon now. And it's on paperback, ebook, only those formats at the moment. But I'm looking forward to when they have telepathic links. That'd be cool.
Ooh.
And a part of me, like, it's been mentioned more than once, I should do an audiobook, but the problem with that is I use italics so much to show sort of twisted, like, I'm not sure how you do that.
Actors is how you
that is.
You
do that, definitely.
The right performer brings all that stuff out. It brings it to life and just makes it That's the
I don't have the money for those people. They're great.
They're great, but they're expensive, as it turns out.
Yeah, like, don't get Ice-T to voice your fantasy novel that he doesn't care about.
Probably.
For people that don't know, there was a Forgotten Realms novel he voiced.
My God.
A story with Drizzt. Yeah.
I love Drizzt. I've got to hear this. I have got to hear this. Not in its entirety, mind you, but at least samples.
I'm going to feel so bad if it's actually Ice Cube. But, which is just me mocking the fact that I can't remember names very well ever. Right. But it's terrible.
Hip-hop wasn't exactly your genre, I guess.
And I'm listening to it more these days, but no, I gotta admit. But I'm pretty sure it was Ice-T. But no. So the first Adventure of Silver Girl is out, and it's been out for a bit. And this weekend, hopefully, Silver Eclipse should be going up, which is the second story, which really kicks up the severity and the heat. And it only got about 90% longer. and it was shorter than the first. I know, like it's.
Right.
I've been keeping track of, oh, this is how every chapter got longer. This is how the average, and this is this. And I haven't been trying to it's not out like inflated. There's nothing. There's no filler. Like nothing got added for nothing's sake. But it just turns out that when you're 18, you're rushing very desperately through a story because you really want to get to the end. You ignore how this scene's really hot and people want to stay in it for more than 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's true.
And hopefully I fix that.
Well, I think that I mean, you kind of were, without saying it, you were basically saying that you were not going to pull a Star Wars Special Edition with your work, and it sounds like you haven't. It sounds like what you have done, which is what you should do, is pull a Blade Runner Final Cut with your work, because for those who are not aware, there are a number of mistakes in the Blade Runner film, and there's also the fact that there were kind of multiple edits of it and things that were floating around over the years, the director's cut from the early 90s, and a print that was shown sort of on the festival circuit and all this stuff. And about 10 years ago, Ridley Scott supervised sort of a consolidation effort to make a definitive version that fixes, and I'm not talking about mistakes like Han shooting in self-defense or some nonsense like that, but actual mistakes, like things that, like, oh, this is obviously not the same actor. This is a stunt person in a wig, and we don't have time to fix it. Things like that.
Samurai Cop.
But the fact that, like, in my mind, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, the final cut, is the standard by which all should be measured in terms of the restraint that you show when you're going to go back and revisit something with the purpose of polishing it. You want to show that level of restraint. And the fact that some of the mistakes and things are what give it its charm, and you don't take those out.
Yeah, it's like to compare it to Star Wars, because it's a sort of it's in my opinion what's always going to come to people's mind for taking a thing that people liked and doing anything to it. At least I hope people liked mine. Yeah. I got enough emails, I'm going to hope. But is I grew up and I saw the re-releases they did in theaters in the 90s, and they weren't as terrible to me then as they are now.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
Everyone always forgets the THX re-release with the box sets with Leonard Maltin's interviews, and that's what I grew up rewatching constantly.
Same.
And that's how you do it right.
Yes.
Because Star Wars isn't a series that you can, I just got done with a very long discussion about all the cut content from A New Hope, which I don't know how you'd fit back in, because it's already not pacing issues, but it's long. I don't think you could really put the stuff back in without wrecking the pacing.
The magic of A New Hope, if you've never watched any of the documentary, the magic of A New Hope is what is what is not in that movie. That movie is a miracle of editing.
Yes, it's soup. So much is. But you want to go back and you don't want to mess with a scene, because even if you think, oh, that scene was bad, I could put this over here. The problem is that someone loved where that was. Right. Someone is that part of the tape always rips and tears and makes sounds that makes them afraid for the VCR every time they rewatch it. Yeah. The trick is to find a way to go back through and just make it so that whatever someone liked is easier to see. And you might still accidentally kill a line. You might accidentally make it so someone realizes something's different or it's not quite right. But if you don't get rid of the original, and no matter what you do on the internet, you can never get rid of data unless you go full 50 Shades with it. But, and even then, you can still find it. There are ways.
There are ways. Despite the legal efforts, there are ways.
That's what I feel you should do with that kind of thing. And I don't want to speak down on anyone who's done anything different, because there are stories I would be completely. You wrote something 20 years ago, you want to completely tear it down, it's yours. Yeah. More power to you. But my philosophy with my work is always. I always want to be making it so you can read it if you read it before and think, oh, cool, you didn't wreck all the stuff I liked. And you can read it new and go, oh, wow, I didn't read this before because of blank, and now it's actually good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you want, exactly. So what does the future hold? What's coming up next for you and your work and the fans of your work? What is it that they can look forward to?
Well, by the time this is going up, we probably got Silver Eclipse, and if you haven't read that yet, you should go out and check it, because it's going to be the definitive version of that, unless I need to fix a typo or something. Right. Almost just made one verbally.
The definitive version for now.
I really don't foresee needing to do it again. It's just, you should see, oh god, it's so badly. The I'm not even going to do it. I can't be that mean to myself because I know
Yeah.
there are people that really love that story, but just no. Is My Girlfriend's Mom's a Hypnotist.
Yeah.
That series is getting another piece, hopefully very soon. I've been working on it for a bit, but illness.
This is a new chapter. This is a new chapter we're talking about.
Yep. New section for that on Amazon. We've got My Girlfriend's Mom is a Hypnotist, and now I'm not allowed to wear panties in her house.
Yeah.
And then we had the follow up for
Greatest title ever. Let's pause for a second. Greatest title ever. Okay, resume.
I mean, to be fair here, we do owe it to a brilliant creative mind that helped work with this, who has no, desire at all to toot their own horn in mentioning what a great title that is. Callidus helped. And then we have, and now she's training my girlfriend to dominate me.
Oh, come on, that's
I don't
great.
I don't want to give away what we're working on with the third. There's a couple different angles, and I'm still kind of not completely sure which direction I want to take some of it. But I've had like 3 different ways to have at least 5 parts of the series going for a while, and I have a few drafts going for different stories in the same same world and going similar themes as the Honeypot series. Hopefully, some of those will be getting like to a place where someone else can see them soon.
Right.
More great anti-capitalist cyberpunk porn, so
Right.
that'll be great. You have to do that when you're writing
All at the
cyberpunk
same
in a
time.
porn,
All
right?
at the same time.
Exactly. And I have some really great stories coming up soon that are just like I got some really good advice early on, which is people really like series. So if there's anything that I've already written, I expect to see some more of that. Hopefully, like Application of Control has been getting some really good hits recently. My recent presenting and presented is going to be coming out soon, and basically look forward to more of what I've got going. And if there's anything you want to see more of, I'm very swayed by sales and requests, honestly.
There you go.
But one of the great things that has been about getting to do all of this stuff with Amazon and getting feedback and exploring things with the fan base is that recently, back in January, I actually got to go across the country to Baltimore and meet a bunch of great people over at the Charmed convention. My first time going to any Hypno convention anywhere, and I was a vendor and had a lot of fun meeting people, selling books, and just getting to shoot the breeze with a lot of great hypno fetishists. I got to meet Wise Guy, Secret Subject, a lot of just really great people. Dr. D, as mentioned before, got to meet there. It was a really great scene.
That's fantastic. That sounds so fun. I cannot tell you how jealous I am, or envious, not necessarily jealous, but I'm envious. That sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing I would recommend to everyone to give a try at least once to see if you can get to some kind of hypno meetup. It takes all kinds in the world, but it turns out that people that are into MC kink, we have some similarities and tend to get along pretty well. So I would heavily recommend. Yeah, no, you'd think.
It's crazy how this works.
I seriously cannot recommend enough how just completely delightful it was, and it was great. And it's not the only one either.
No, not
we've
by
got
far.
a list of some great things that are coming up. In fact, there's even a new one that you got contacted by one of the people involved in Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's true. But I'll talk about that in a second because I feel like you're glossing over the headline here. My question to you about all this is, well, okay, let me back up real quick. Other than the meet other people in the community aspect of it, what sort of activities and things, like what kind of sessions and seminars or whatnot, did Charmed feature? And did you get, as a vendor, I know that sometimes you aren't able to participate in all that, but was there anything that really stood out to you that you did get to participate in that was fun?
Well, the only thing I really missed, and I heard it was a lot of fun, but wasn't entirely my scene anyway. I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan, though. If you are, then there are a lot of Harry Potter fans in the MC community, it turns out.
Okay.
Which is not surprising, if only just because people are really into magic, as it turns out.
Okay.
There was a speakeasy with there was some kind of password to get in, which I can't remember anymore, but I was hearing a lot of people asking for it and then being told, with various hypnotic effects on the drinks. There was a great series run by, I only remember one of the people that was involved. Ellie, I believe, a magic, not magic, music in hypnosis that was that Callidus was a part of that I heard nothing but great things about.
Yeah.
Secret Subjects class on fractionation was absolutely amazing, and oh, I'm gonna have to like check my program at some point and apologize to them profusely. Oh, Turquoise did a great instant inductions seminar, which was just I'd heard before of things like, everyone's heard of the Erickson induction. If
Sure.
you've learned anything about hypnosis, handshake and then screw with someone's brain and they're down. But getting basically here's like 10 or something, there's at least 10 different tricks, and the wonderful Ari, who writes on Tumblr and these days also on Twitter, Ari He Writes, was the subject for that, and
Yeah.
that was just really enlightening. I'd never seen anything like that before in person, and as a hypnotist myself, it was just fascinating. It's a very, very different style, but oh, that's got some fun uses to it.
Yeah.
Heard a lot about the class that Wise Guy specifically was a part of, the sort of like introductory class thing was, or was it the Star Wars related one? Because it turns out a lot of us are horrible nerds.
What do you know?
Heard a lot of great things about that, though. There was other things I was a part of too. But I ended up not going to the most classes. I was kind of super drained from the trip, and turns out reclusive writer types are actually really reclusive.
What do you know?
So it took a lot of energy participating with a lot of people. It was super worth it, but I could not have been in all the classes I wanted to go to. But every single one I went to was very, even stuff I heard about tangentially, it was very informative. It was the dungeon setup there was really great. I got to see someone mummified in cling film or plastic wrapping.
Yeah.
I default to cling film due to an old ASSTR website. We're orbit in cling film. It's a good comedic website. I think it's supposed to be comedic. And I know there were other things. Went to a lot of great lunches with a lot of great people. The MCL Mind Control Literature Discord had it's like some meetup stuff there. Went out to dinner at this nice little place, sort of a pub atmosphere. Can't remember what it was called, but had this great grilled cheese. It was just
the things that stand out, right?
It's exactly like so much happened, but it would take way, like, I am not capable of saying all the great things, but there are so many great people to meet. Venture Vixen was a great person that stands out. I could not even I'm missing out on half the things that were great there, and I don't want to sell anyone short, but just it's a delight, it's a treat, and I would heavily recommend it to anyone that even vaguely has considered it. If you have one anywhere near your area, at least just to take a peek, because it's such a rush.
Yeah, I was emailing with the organizer over the weekend. I was emailing with the organizer of an inaugural Hypno Erotic convention that's taking place in Austin, Texas, called HEART, which stands for Hypnotic, Erotic, and Recreational Trance. And they were saying very much the same thing, that they got their first opportunity to go to one of these in, I don't remember exactly when, but let's just say the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And had so much fun, got so much out of it that now they've turned around and they're trying to sort of organize one in that area of the country, and they were saying the exact same thing as you, just encouraging me to get out there and go to one if I get the opportunity, because they just enjoyed themselves so very much. And if you listening think that you would enjoy yourself very much as well, we're going to run down real quickly here just a list of some of the hypnotic, erotic, mind control conventions and unconventions, as they sometimes refer to themselves, that are taking place around the country. Charmed, which you just went to, they're already starting to organize for next year. They say on their website that registration for Charmed 2020 will be opening in July this year. And as you said, that's Baltimore, Maryland. That's charmedhypno.org. There is NIHU, which is the New England Erotic Hypnosis Unconference. That's the next one coming up. That is March 28th through April 1st in Windsor, Connecticut. So that's right around the corner, just a couple weeks from now.
Yeah, and there's some good people that are going to be there. I know some people that are going to that.
neehu.org. There is the aforementioned Heart that is taking place in Austin, Texas, May 31st to June 2nd. That's hearthypno.com. There is Beguiled, great name, June 28th through the 30th in Schaumburg, Illinois, Schaumburg. I don't know how it's pronounced. Schaumburg, Illinois. Beguiledcon.tumblr.com. And let's see, then there's a Deep Mind Dark Wood, September 21st through the 23rd, which takes place, it's sort of an open air event, unique in that sense, takes place in the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts. You can find them at www.deepminddarkwood.com. And then finally, Mindquake, which is October 31st through November 4th in San Francisco. That is mindquake.org. So, if any of those are near you and are coming up in a window of time you've got free, I would follow Madame Kistulot's advice and go.
It will definitely be a very interesting, enlightening experience, and if you don't learn something, you'll still connect with someone, and there are a lot of people that it was just such a rush to just meet so many people, and the atmosphere is I'd heard a lot of things about like worries of cliquishness or like difficult to get involved and stuff, and it's not a guarantee that you'll be involved in a scene or anything like that. Like that's with any kind of kink event or anything at all.
Right.
But like people are there to meet people are there to interact. I mean, not everyone all the time, but I was lucky enough to be with people who are much more outgoing than me, so I kind of got to glom onto their energy and kind of just ride that.
Yeah.
But if you can either follow up with someone who's similar with like that, or if you can just like sort of have that little burst of like reaching out, you'll definitely be rewarded, because it's a community that wants to be welcoming new people in. Don't be put off if it feels like everyone's already paired up or busy. There are people who are super happy to meet new people and are just basically there to soak in everything that's there, and that'll include you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds so fun.
Definitely was.
You know, something I was thinking about when we were talking about it, but Beguiled, they still have their official site on Tumblr, and they have managed to survive the purge, the Tumblr snap.
Wow.
That has taken down so many people, and I guess that's makes this as good a time as any to kind of talk about the demise of Tumblr as a viable online platform for sharing smut, which, let's face it, that's all it was ever good for.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't good for having a very casual conversation.
No, it wasn't. So
I will give its DM credit, like DM feature credit. Like the messaging system that was integrated was much better than most alternatives I've played around with. But smut was definitely what everyone was there for, as we can tell by their membership numbers being tanked.
Yes. Well, they brought it on themselves.
Oh yeah.
So that was a whole thing. It's been actually several months now since that happened. What was it? Late December, I want to say, when that went down. So
yeah,
it's been a little while, but we're all still feeling the effects of it. And if you are anything like us, you're probably looking for a spot to land, saying, well, is everybody moving somewhere else? Where are you going? What do I need to sign up for? What app do I install? And we've been searching for those answers as well, asking those questions. And I don't know if we have the answer. But we do have some answers. We have a few alternatives to discuss. This comes from an article which we're going to have posted in the show notes that you may be interested to check out. It comes from Filthy, and it's 11 Tumblr alternatives that still allow adult content. Some of these you've heard of, and some of these you may not have heard of. A couple of these were not on my radar, and they're actually really, really good. So we just thought it might be helpful to talk about some of these things and share this information with you, our listeners, to hopefully inspire you to maybe find an alternative to Tumblr that works for you personally, but maybe also to find a spot collectively that we in the community can maybe move on to and continue being a community despite the best efforts of Tumblr.
And they really did put their best efforts out.
They sure did, didn't they? So
Yeah.
why don't we run down this list, MK? We've got 11 items from this article, and then we've got a few honorable mentions that we're going to throw in at the end. But what is the first alternative to Tumblr that still allows adult content?
Well, we've got WordPress, which isn't often thought of as a social media platform by a lot of people, but like, I think that's just because like WordPress, even though it's basically what 99% of people's web pages are built on top of it anymore,
Yeah.
there's still I even still just use it on my website as a blog. So most people just think of it as you could comment, but there's really a lot of social features built into WordPress as a default. And either if you have it hosted personally or on their website, they don't care what you put on your WordPress as long as you're not doing anything outright illegal.
Yeah, as long as it's not illegal, they don't have any issues. And of course, the open source WordPress that you can install to your own web server and everything, I mean, that's completely under your control. That's how I run my website. My website's 100% built on WordPress, every bit of it, and it's a very, very flexible platform. The only downside to it, I suppose, is that the way that it has traditionally been used, in the way that most people are, like if you go and find tutorials and things like that, most of the instruction you're going to find online is going to be using WordPress as a blog, basically, as a foundation for your own personal site. And which is it's great at that, no doubt. But as far as there's not like a thing that like you could like kind of say like right now where somebody has used WordPress to kind of build like a community that we in the erotic mind control community could all sort of like gravitate to and glob onto. I don't really see that right now, but the potential is definitely there for someone to build it. Hint, hint, hint. If anybody out there is listening and ambitious, you could do something with WordPress if you wanted to. So
yeah, with it's all basically already there.
Yeah, all the tools are there. It's just a matter of kind of putting them all together in a way that makes sense. Reddit. Definitely got a community on Reddit. There's some mind control fans there too. As a matter of fact, when I look at my analytics and I see incoming links, there's a few mind control groups on Reddit that just have a link to my site, like on the front page of their subreddit. So there's definitely some fans over there. I guess, I don't know about you, but to me, I find Reddit, well, I guess it's not the same experience as Tumblr. Like I don't think it's very easy to have like that kind of feed where you can just go and see, okay, I follow all these people and here's a collection of all the things that they've posted recently.
Yeah, I also find it very hostile to content creators.
Yeah.
The fact that they have a policy on there that you have to make X amount of your posts not be able to be promotional to your own stuff is very... I appreciate the thought that you don't want people on a social media platform just trying to shill all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I can completely respect that idea. But in reality, it's saying, oh, anyone else can post your work as much as they want. But if you dare to ask people to maybe contribute to your being able to eat, that's too much if you're
Right.
not super careful to meet our perfect metric.
Mhm.
That's what I've always found the most kind of uncomfortable about it, is the way that if I find your work, for example, and I want to brag about it to everyone, that's totally cool. I can do that as much as I want. I can be super obnoxious, posting in everyone's threads.
Yeah.
I might get in trouble with the subreddit. But if I was talking about mine too much, then I'd get kicked from it. But there
Yeah.
are some really good communities on there. Like Secret Subjects got one on there that I was like perusing for a bit.
Yeah.
And I know there's a few others I just never got around to.
Yeah, I think the other thing about Reddit is just sort of like the way that you consume it. And I don't want to gloss over the point that you made, which is a really good point. Not something that I had considered at all, but it's an excellent point. But just on a fundamental sort of user experience basis, I find that Reddit, I would not describe Reddit as a platform for discovery.
Yeah.
And it feels like if you want to, like if you've got a specific thing in mind that you want to go and look for, it feels like it takes a lot of clicking or a lot of tapping to kind of get there. And so like you find a thread that seems promising, and then you're just scrolling endlessly scrolling, kind of trying to get to the good stuff, and it's just all kind of mixed in with just random thoughts and comments, and this reminds me of this other thing, and hey, that brings up a question: has anybody ever had this? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I like Reddit, but not necessarily for this purpose. But they do allow adult content.
They do, and that's definitely been a good thing. And they've been doing a better job of moderating like what subreddits they're allowing, so it's becoming a less toxic environment in general, which I definitely approve of.
Right. Okay. What's number 3?
Number 3, we've got Blogger, which I actually used to use way back when they let you basically use their interface to type and then export it to your own website.
Yeah.
And they've threatened like at least 5 times to ban adult content, but every time people scream about it, and I don't think they're going to change their minds at this point.
No, they have allowed adult content. You have to, if you're a person running a blog site on Blogger, you have to indicate that you've got adult content, so it gives you that splash screen that you have to click through and say, yes, I want to see adult content. But they do allow it. Tabaco, her blog is on Blogger. Thrall, a Regina Callidus, her long-running blog, Blogger. I'm sure there's others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but I've certainly come across plenty of Blogger blogs over the years, and it's definitely a great way to share content that you've got. Again, I would say that the thing that it kind of falls short on is that it's not much of a social platform in the way that Tumblr was.
Yeah.
Not that easy to connect with other people. So, it's maybe a little bit of apples and oranges, but if you're just, if interacting with other people is less your concern, and really it's more just about like you want to run a site and share hot pictures and stuff like that, Blogger is definitely one way to get it done.
Yeah, and there's some people you can only really keep in touch with through that interface. So, if you're not aware of it, for example, like check out Tabaco's blog, check it out now. It's so good.
Yeah.
And Thrall's is great too. I still have a song from that blog just stuck in my head occasionally.
Thrall was great about posting stuff like that. She was always bringing in fascinating, little bits of music and things like that she come across, and talk about how it kind of like tied into something she had going on. Number 4 is a little bit of out of left field, in the sense that I was not aware that this website was really in this business, but X-Hamster is one of the items on this list, and I figured X-Hamster is just where you go to pirate porn, but videos specifically. But it turns out that X-Hamster, like, they've done kind of a revamp, and they have like a whole sort of like photo section now that's searchable, and people can upload their own galleries and stuff like that, and it's pretty robust. And I'll say, credit where it's due, the mobile interface isn't bad either.
Impressive. Yeah, mobile's something that I don't touch very often, but yeah, I was just as surprised as you. The last time I'd seen X-Hamster was while trying to find something on another site, having an X-Hamster banner scroll across because of what they do with uploads.
Right.
But it's sort of like our number 8. There's just some sites that are just still chugging away and doing things I would have never thought about.
Yeah. So I think the main thing with X-Hamster is, if I would only really recommend this if you're looking for something more like an imager, or like a photo bucket or something like that. Like if all you're interested in is just uploading galleries of pics and GIFs, I think X-Hamster is maybe worth taking a look at. But again, like that kind of social aspect doesn't really seem to have that.
Yeah.
Although in fairness, I only played with it for 30 minutes or so it's possible that maybe there is some additional functionality that I just didn't discover in that time.
Yeah, it's hard to really get to know a social media platform unless you devote all of your time to it, and then you have to keep it up. So
Yeah, it's true.
not easy to do lightly.
Number 5 is FetLife, and I guess it really doesn't bear much mentioning since FetLife sort of threw the mind control community under the bus some time ago.
Yeah.
Um,
They're letting us there now, but that's always a tenuous sort of thing. No matter how much you promise me you're not going to screw me over again, you do it once. I don't want to put all my chips in your basket.
yeah, I have to say that I'm still a little bit upset with them. I think that, you know, in much the same way that you see people talking about the reason that many of us adopt the term sex worker to describe ourselves is to have solidarity. So are you are you a suburban housewife that runs a side business on night flirt? Sex worker. Are you a prostitute? Sex worker. Are you an adult actress? Sex worker. And the reason is for solidarity, because sex workers got to stick together, and if we can build a coalition of people who earn money doing sex work of some kind, then maybe we can get some much needed and long overdue changes brought about in culture.
Yeah, and it's definitely not going to work if we're throwing each other under the bus or
Like
okay
FetLife. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what bugs me about FetLife, is that I wish that mindset was shared by kinksters, and for the most part I feel like it is. I feel like for the most part, like, you know, even if your weird fetish is not my thing, bro, you know, I will defend your right to have it. I will defend your right to express it, and I'll show me where we're marching, and I'll go with you. I'll fight for you on that front, because I feel like kinksters got to stick together, or kinksters ought to stick together. And so FetLife, in my opinion, sort of caving to the I don't know. I don't know exactly what their reasons were, but from my perspective, it seemed like they were running into the problem that a lot of people run into, which is, you know, credit card companies have got this hair up their ass about hypnosis, and it's, you know, become a real red flag word for credit card processors and things like that. And I feel like FetLife was caving to sort of that kind of pressure and just saying, oh, this is a problem that we don't need to have, and so adios. I don't know.
Yeah, and then now that, there's a huge mass exodus, it's a good a time as any to position yourself as, hey, we've changed our mind since then.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying, like, I have one, because it pays to be places where you can, where there are people that are like-minded. Because there's just whole erotic hypnosis communities. There's lots of people there. It's just, I would not put too much faith in it being consistent.
No, I guess that sums up my feeling as well. And I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if I've got an account. I mean, like, I've browsed the site a few times, but I was never really on there with any great frequency. So I don't know how well FetLife works as an alternative to Tumblr, because I guess I'm still angry at them, and I'm not quite ready to forgive them.
Yeah, and for my own usage purposes, I'm not sure it necessarily would. I haven't done a whole lot with it, but it seems much. I've seen people post pictures on there, and I've seen people like post, like, you can do the whole sort of Facebooky thing of like posting onto your own wall or onto other people's. I feel like the old person who doesn't know how the website works with this one, but I basically just use it to make updates, and I, for one, am not going to put the effort into learning more of it unless it becomes a really big reason to. But it's at least it's a thing that's there, and we want to make sure that we don't leave something out.
Yeah. All right. So next one is kind of an interesting one. This is, I don't know that this exactly popped up directly in response to Tumblr, but it certainly sort of came along at the right time, I suppose, to maybe capitalize on Tumblr's decision to ban adult content. That's pillowfort.io. What do you think about Pillowfort, MK?
Well, Pillow Fort came to my attention a little bit before the Tumblr collapse because it was something that was being worked on, but it was very in like nascent stages even then. Like the kind of like, hey, we'll have a working project soon kind of a thing. And like I'd heard it sort of proposed as a sort of a Tumblr with a little bit more thought out social features because I mean like Tumblr is really great for posting stuff and you could meet people through it, but it wasn't the best for like threaded comments weren't a thing, and if someone posted a response, you couldn't tell if it was to the original post or if because you'd have people saying like horrible things about something. It's like, oh, because someone else posted at some point.
Yeah.
But Pillow Fort sounded like a sort of attempt to lean in a bit more of a fully featured version of that sort of interface, so to speak. And the last I heard, it was down, and then you could pay $5 to get a look at it. And I like the idea of there's an old expression of if you're not buying something, then you're the product.
Yeah.
Which is very true in our society right now.
Yes.
And the fact that there's an opt-in, making it so that there is something going there that's some form of monetization that's not just like a Twitter style of eventually we'll find someone to sell you out to, is something that appeals to me.
It's funny you say that because that's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, is what I would pay to have something like a Tumblr that would leave me alone in terms of ads or monkeying about with what I'm allowed to post and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly willing to talk about trading some cash, maybe X amount per year to have access to such a platform. And so anyway, in the spirit of that, I guess I'm saying I agree with you. I dropped the $5 to try out Pillow Fort, which I've been checking out this week. The interface feels like it needs some refinement. Like there's some good functionality there, but it feels a little bit. It feels like it could stand to be polished a little bit, which that kind of thing can happen in time.
Yeah.
It works pretty well on mobile as well as desktop.
Nice.
The main thing that I would say in my experience is just there's a bit of a lack of content right now. There's just not a lot there, which at the moment, there's a pay gate to even get in. It stands to reason that they are not going to have as large a user base right now as a long established free service would. So
yeah,
that's to be expected, but I definitely feel like it's something to watch. I feel like there is some potential here, especially if they can refine their user interface a bit more and make that a little bit more friendly.
That would be really great because I would definitely like to see a social media platform that directly addresses the concerns of, you ever been on a social media platform and all of a sudden you realize that they don't, like Twitter will just all of a sudden just go, hey, what if we could do this? Would more, like advertisers like us more now? The answer is no. No one will ever like you for that, Twitter. Go away. No.
Tell them. Okay. Number 7, MeWe. This is one I had never heard of. Had you ever heard of MeWe prior to this?
No, I'd never even heard of like the name or like a description of something that I can like in retrospect say, oh, that must have been MeWe. I'd never even like thought of that before like you linked this article to me.
Yeah, nor I. I downloaded their app, I installed it, and I've tried to check it out. I have managed to subscribe to one person who was on Tumblr but moved to MeWe, had a link on their Tumblr blog, and I was able to successfully follow them on MeWe. But the way that it works, and I don't know if this is something that can change or if this is just the default behavior, but if you want to subscribe to somebody, you basically apply and they have to approve it, like almost like you're friending them.
Huh.
And so you can't just search around for some naughty content on MeWe and then subscribe to it if you manage to find it, which discovery was not going so great. Like in terms of search results, I wasn't really seeing a lot in the way of adult content coming back in search results, which I imagine is intentional. But
It's the whole, I typed, well, this is not duck I'm trying to type word. You know it's duck.
Right. I found 3 Tumblr blogs that had gone to MeWe, and I tried to follow all 3 of them. Only one of them happened successfully, and I'm guessing that's just because the people who are running those blogs maybe aren't. They might not be seeing the notifications. Maybe they've already kind of checked out. They're not really following that platform too closely. I don't know, but the web app, or excuse me, the native app on iOS works pretty well. That aspect of it seems promising, but it seems while they are allowing adult content, until the search results sort of allow you to discover the stuff you want to find. And I think the whole sort of like having to approve people following you, I think that maybe needs to get rethought, because to me that seems like a barrier to entry.
Yeah, because I can see the thought process. I can definitely see positive aspects of that. Like, you're not dealing with, you definitely cut down harassment, for example, which is a problem on every social media platform sooner or later. But part of a social media platform is inherently, at least a larger one that's not meant for like small communities or very close-knit friends, is the idea of meeting new people, or like forming community, or like people intermingling. And if you have to go through a step to get there, then that's going to cut out most of those interactions.
Yeah. Well, and it puts, I think, an undue onus on, like, if you're running a blog or whatever on MeWe and you're putting stuff out there, it stands to reason you want people to see it. And the fact that they make it more difficult to do that indicates to me that that might not have been the use of their platform they envisioned. That, in their mind, it was more going to be like an alternative to Facebook, in which case, yeah, you totally want to have control over who's following you and stuff like that. So, again, like, it's a social media site. It allows adult content, but it doesn't really do what Tumblr did in that regard.
Yeah. At least not yet. Who knows?
Not yet,
this is one of the, like, websites are one of those things that, just like WordPress used to just only ever be even vaguely capable of a blog.
Yeah.
We'll even not. Who knows what it'll be in 2 years from now?
It's true. It's true. Yeah. So it's always a good idea to keep these things in mind. It is worth noting, though, that MeWe is notable in the sense that it is a social media site that allows adult content. It's not adult content focused, and that means that they haven't had their native app pulled from the App Store. So if a native app experience is important to you, and I got to say that was one of the best aspects of Tumblr, because the native app on iOS, and I imagine the Android one as well, is quite good. That aspect of a replacement is problematic if you're not on Android. With these sites that are purely adult focused, in the way of, a FetLife or something like that.
Yeah, and speaking of sites that I wouldn't have thought were adult focused at all, and wouldn't have thought would be around in 5 years, the 8th, as alluded to before, and I had found that there was some good MC content being produced there before you linked it to me, but I was still surprised, was Newgrounds.
I know, right? Like I didn't even know Newgrounds was still a thing. Like, it was still around, but it's actually huge.
It got bigger between when like the portal was a thing in high school and now.
Right. It's nuts. But
I don't even know how that works, because Flash, I think they finally, like, most browsers don't even like let you install it unless you fight with them now.
Yeah, like you really have to jump through some hoops to use Flash these days. But anyway, so Newgrounds is still around, and honestly, to me, like, it feels a little bit almost like a kind of an alternative to DeviantArt or something like that. In the sense that it's really sort of about content creators having a place to share their stuff, and they have art and games and movies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and if it's set up anything like, because I haven't used it for its social media features so much as for looking through some art and enjoying some of the stuff. I remember I worked on a production ages ago, actually lent my voice to one, and it violated like the exact size limits at the time due to some weird esoteric things with the way that Flash worked with certain long programs. And the people that ran the site back in the day were very nice about actually helping us get it on, even though theoretically it wasn't going to work with all their submission standards. So like it's a site that I have good memories of being willing to listen and like help people with actual problems. I don't know if that's the user experience still how it is, but like if having a gallery that doesn't have some of the issues DeviantArt has is appealing to you, then it definitely doesn't have a problem of discoverability with the way its thumbnails work, and they don't care about limiting your access to adult content at all.
Yeah, it's true. So it's definitely worth a look in that respect. Okay, number 9 is another site that I had not heard of at all. It is sharesome.com, ShareSome, if that's not coming across, sharesome.com. I won't bury the headline here. Out of everything that we are going to talk about today, this is the alternative to Tumblr that I wish everyone would jump to. It's amazingly good. It's still in beta. I have no idea what their monetization strategy is going to be. There's no ads on the site at the moment. But in terms of the amount of content that's already there, the user interface, and also just its viability as a web app, it's amazingly good. I've been deeply impressed with it.
Nice. Yeah, this is one that just slipped completely under the radar for me. I tend to find out about these things when either they get like some big press or someone I know signs up for one of them. But like right now, neither of those things have like pointed me to this at all. So I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, it's cool. There are many Tumblr-like blogs on this site in just in terms of, these are like people who are running their own thing, or it's a blog that's really interest-based and that sort of thing. The interface is going to feel very, very familiar. You can like posts, you can comment on them, you can share them. It's also got this neat bookmark feature, which is like, I don't really want to interact with this post in a social media way, but I do want to have it saved so that I can find it again later. You can do that.
Nice.
They don't have a native app since, ShareSome is an adult social network. Like as opposed to just allowing adult content, like their whole thing is, hey, we're an adult social network. But the web app is so good that you don't really miss having a native app. There's only been a couple of times that I've been using it and I've had something happen where I'm reminded, like, oh yeah, this isn't an actual app. This is actually a website that just looks like an app. But
nice.
It's really, really good. The search feature is great. Discovery is great. It's got instant messaging. It's got instant messaging features built in. I'm actually tapping through it like right now, just trying to kind of do some stuff with it. So, you can follow people the same way you do on Tumblr. You can message people the way that you would do on Tumblr. When you go to someone's profile, though, they do this really great thing where the interface is very Tumblr-like, but one thing that they pull from Twitter that I really like is when you go to that person's page to kind of read up on them, it's got like an About Me section and all that kind of stuff. It shows you how many followers they've got, how many people they're following. But there's a filter at the top where you can instantly see, like, okay, here's their posts. Do you want to just see the photos that they've posted? Do you just want to see the videos that they've posted? Do you want to see who they are following, who's following them? You can just tap on these links at the top and instantly filter the content based on those things.
That does sound like it stole all the best parts of Twitter.
Yes, it did. However, all of that pales in comparison to what I think is the service's killer feature, and that is topics. And anybody can create a topic, and anybody can join a topic. Well, actually, I mean, you can moderate topics. Anybody can create a topic, and then you moderate the topic. But the point is, like, once you create a topic, that becomes a box for content, and people can put content in your box simply by tagging it, which is posting in that topic. That's sort of the language that they use. So the idea is, like, I create a topic called erotic mind control. And so I'm posting things into that topic. They go to my wall, but I'm also posting them to that topic, which means that anybody that follows the topic that I've created, erotic mind control, sees everything that I'm posting tagged with erotic mind control. But also, anyone else that creates erotic mind control content can tag their stuff erotic mind control. And now you have a single topic that you can follow and see what everybody who's posting to the erotic mind control topic, you can get all of that in one place. It also makes discovery for subject matter super easy.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that sort of reminds me of like how when I was running a tabletop game for a while in Roll20, I had a whole section of my tweet deck just for the hashtag like pixel art, because I needed like minis to be able to use for that, and that sounds like the same kind of thing, but for smut. Which, yes, please.
Yes, it's fantastic. I have to say that, like, honestly, Sharesome is really where I'm planning to spend my time moving forward. There's already a an erotic hypnosis topic. There's already erotic mind control as a topic, bimbofication, and some of the other like brainwashing, and like some of like the more specific but ancillary sort of things are there as well. There's already people there. There's quite a bit of content. Not necessarily, like, I'm not necessarily saying like erotic mind control content. There's quite a bit of just adult content in general, and I really like it. I would encourage everybody to go check this out, because I think out of everything on this list, I think this is the most viable alternative to Tumblr that I've used so far. I think it's really, really worth a look. So. And I wish they were paying me to say this. I desperately wish I were getting paid for this plug, but I'm not.
Well, the best plugs tend to not be the paid ones.
Oh, what are we saying? Is it a double entendre? Is it not?
I wasn't even thinking of that, but you're totally right.
Number 10. Mastodon.
Oh, Mastodon. Mastodon's one of those ones that when I saw it, my immediate thought was, I want to say more nice things about this. I
love the idea of Mastodon.
Yes.
What we were saying earlier about wouldn't it be great to just have a social media site or a social networking site that was just for the erotic mind control community? We'll just get our own place and do whatever we want with it. Well, that's what Mastodon is. Mastodon is open source social networking software. You can download and install to your own web server. You can also purchase managed server instances if you're so inclined. Prices are reasonable. Feature set's pretty good. But unfortunately, as some open source software can be, Mastodon can be kind of a hot mess. And if you manage to have a really organized community that's using one instance of Mastodon and they're all happy, then that's great. But where you start trying to kind of like reach across through different instances of Mastodon that may have different rules and different implementation things going on, it can get a little muddy at that point.
Yeah. It's definitely got, like, the fact that you can make your own, the fact that there are places, basically, if a community decides the way that this works didn't work for us, we can, split off. It basically lets you have the sort of strength of having like a individually managed forum without having to have a unique sign up, which is largely like, I think that's the biggest reason why web forums are dying as a whole, is that who wants to sign up to just one thing to talk with, this many people when you could just talk with everyone everywhere.
Right.
But it's just, I remember trying to look into it, and you like which instance is the right one. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Discovery
which one
is a
has the right
problem.
features.
Discovery
Oh,
is a
God. Yeah.
problem. Like I said,
And just
it's one of those things, like if you've got a small knit community already that's, that's organized and communicating, you could probably implement Mastodon and it would kind of make sense. But if you're trying to join something and find other people with similar interests and all that kind of thing, because there's not any centralization to it, that is a bit of a hot mess, I guess.
for the moment, at least,
Yeah.
there's it as it is open source, and like there's lots of versions of it. The good thing about that is it means development is like ongoing from many different angles at once. So
Right.
someone might come up with a solution to that problem before Newgrounds dies. Which just I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop being amused by the fact that it's still around.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of a site that will not die and is still going strong despite a desperately needed aesthetic overhaul, DeviantArt is number 11 on the list. It's amazing to me, honestly, how strong a thing DeviantArt. I mean, I can remember the early days when DeviantArt was really not much to speak of, but it's huge now, really huge.
Yeah. No, I remember when like I joined right before the original founder left, and just everyone's signature lines were just full of either support for the gone alien or support for the new ninja overlord. And
Yeah,
you say that to someone now, and it's just like, what the heck are you even talking about?
yeah, but it was a total thing.
There is one thing about DeviantArt, though, as regards to adult content that's very much worth noting. For one, since they do like to consider themselves classier than they have any right to,
Yes.
they are very, like, who is suddenly considered too pornographic can be very up to moderator approval.
Yeah.
And they have a very hard time with, I believe it was Sejic, the writer of Sunstone, posted something the other day going on about how basically if you want to draw penises, you're basically out.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that does not really thing bothers me personally, but I respect that that's kind of weird to draw the line there.
Yeah, it's the they're kind of trying to have it both ways and not always succeeding. But then that's I mean, I consume content there, and there are people like Uzobono, as an example, who use it essentially as a distribution platform. Like, it's basically a place, for her to post things, and you can go find her stuff and you could look through her gallery, but you could just as easily do something like that on Imager or Blogger or something. She could have a WordPress site if she wanted to, because she doesn't actually post her comics there. She just posts covers and links to her comics there, because obviously her comics are far too pornographic to actually be on DeviantArt. So, yeah, it is. There's a little bit of a gray area with what DeviantArt allows. I've never posted anything there just because while there's plenty of photo manip stuff there, they, in a similar fashion, like they kind of have they have a little bit of a tenuous relationship with that, because you are taking existing artwork and stealing it to create your own thing with it. And they're all about, protecting the original artists and, really giving credit to the people who create the art. So it's not a platform that is, I've found to be super friendly to photo manipulators like myself.
Yeah, and it can be pretty rough for writing.
Yeah,
the discovery of writing on there is basically non-existent.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't really seem all that geared towards it, does it?
No, though it is actually where Silver Girl first got posted ages and ages ago, so I have a soft spot for it, but
well, rightly so.
It's not there anymore.
Well, they have a native app on iOS and Android, and the native app works pretty good, and so I mean, there's definitely a social aspect to the site. It's definitely a way that you can discover other people and discover their work, similar to the topics thing that I was talking about in the share some section just a second ago. One of the things I love about DeviantArt is finding, basically the favorites lists that people create, like Uzobono's favorites list, or, whatever. You can go and you can find those favorites lists. You can subscribe to those. You can dig through those and find the content that other people have already found that they really like in subject matter that you are interested in. That aspect of DeviantArt is fantastic.
Yeah, and like I have a friend who commissions a lot of art of one of their characters on there, and they have a game where whenever anyone favorites any of the art that they've posted, they've commissioned, they then go through that person's favorite to see what's the fetish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very fun game to play.
Yeah.
It also, there are several erotic hypnosis, erotic mind control communities already there.
Yes, very
So
true.
like you check out like Rotem Deshawn, check who's favorited their stuff, and that alone you've got so much stuff and communities they posted to.
So there's already a lot of our people in that arena, which makes it worthwhile. So that's it. Those are the 11 alternatives from this article. There's some honorable mentions that I think we should go ahead and throw out. The first one being Twitter. Twitter's still allowing adult content. There's tons of people on Twitter, and I think it has gotten more active since Tumblr's purge of adult content.
Definitely with our community, at least.
Yeah. My biggest issue is that the interface kind of sucks. I have to say that I think Tumblr had that cracked quite a bit better than Twitter has.
Yeah, I use TweetDeck, so
yeah,
I'm just sitting over here like, what are you talking about? It's great. Oh, no, right.
Yeah, I do too. TweetDeck is definitely the way to go. The native Twitter UI is not awesome. The other issue,
making it worse.
The other issue I have that I find, unfortunately, particularly for adult content, it really tends to be a promotion-heavy network. Like if you're following, like your favorite adult actress or whatever, there's a great chance that all you're going to be seeing is just posted a new video to clips for sale, just sold a new recording on Night Flirt, and like that kind of stuff. I find that it wasn't quite, a lot of the content's not quite as substantive as what those same people were posting to Tumblr, as an example.
Yeah, they'll be there, but it'll be much less frequent.
Exactly. Yeah, you just you have to weave through all that to kind of get to the good stuff. But that's not really the fault of Twitter as such. That's just the way that people kind of have chosen to use it.
Part of it's also just kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so what's next on the honorable mentions list?
Next we have BDSM which I've heard that the mobile interface is pretty good.
It is. It is.
I have heard the biggest complaint I heard about it from people going from Tumblr was that it provides the stuff. Like it could be very well used for the stuff that was explicitly kicked away from Tumblr, but it felt like a lot less of a room for the other half of Tumblr, like the sort of casual, silly stuff that, like as you just mentioned, would be a shame to lose, and we're already seeing that.
Right. Yeah, I think that BDSM, honestly, I mean, I've really got to give them credit. I did not think much of them when they first came out and sort of announced that they were going to try to pick up the gauntlet and everything. Yeah. But credit where it's due, they have come a long way in a short time. The slickness of their interface has really impressed me. I mean, I signed up with them as soon as they came out months ago. I tried it out then, and it felt kind of clunky and a little bit worrisome. And where it is now is deeply impressive. If they could continue this development momentum in another 3 months, by the end of this year, they could be not only viable but really pretty impressive. There's good content there right now. There's a lot of people that move from Tumblr to BDSM, so there's familiar faces, that have imported their blogs there. I think the biggest problems are that the mobile interface is a little funky. I was using it with the Firefox mobile app, and I found that as I would search for something and click on, or I would see a post and somebody would comment something to it, and they'd have, an interesting username that says, oh, this person must be into erotic mind control. Click on the username, and it opens up another tab in mobile Firefox, and soon I've got like 12 tabs open. So, I don't know if that's the fault of their site or if that's the fault of mobile Firefox, but I just found that aspect of the experience to be a little less than ideal.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Though, oh gosh, only having 12 tabs open. Little confession to my viewers. I don't even know how many tabs I have open on my phone right now. It's a little
Hundreds.
smiley face. It doesn't even tell
Hundreds.
me.
Hundreds of
It's at least
tabs.
100.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say is that like their search could use a little refinement. If you wanted, like, if you go onto like if you're looking at a person's blog, a person's page, and you hit the search icon at the top, you're only searching on that person's page. If you want to do a site-wide search, you have to click the home button and go back to your feed, and then the search button at the top will do a site-wide search. And to me, it just needs a toggle. Like when you hit the magnifying glass, you need to toggle, am I looking on this blog or am I looking on the whole site?
Yeah, because otherwise that's not very clear.
It's not. And you know, like I'm on this person's blog and I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. I'm going to go search for something else now. I type that in and I'm still on that person's website, but now I have a message that says no search results found. And I'm trying to understand, like, you know, how are there no search results for, you know, latex on all of BDS similar? And then it suddenly dawned on me, oh, I'm not searching all of BDS similar. I'm only on this person's page. So
Yeah, that would be a bizarre moment to have, I'm sure.
yes, it was. It made me feel a little confused for a moment. I will admit. But anyway, I got to say that if you haven't given BDS Imler a look yet, or if you did take a look early on and weren't impressed, it's worth taking a look again now because it's definitely evolved and moved forward. So
I'll have to give it a look then.
yes. All right. Next is another. This is similar to BDS Imler. This is Tumblr. This was another site that was, really trying to. They were trying to step in during the demise of Tumblr there. I thought that they had a little bit better interface than BDSMler did when they first launched, but they were very light on content. And so I kind of took the attitude of, oh, I'll check back in a little while. Well, I checked back in today to see how they were doing, and they're down at the moment. They're saying that they're moving to a new server and all that stuff, and I don't know how long that message has been there. They may actually be defunct right now, or they may just be moving. I really don't know.
But, yeah, it's hard to say. There are still sites that say they're moving from 10 years ago.
Right? So in any case, I don't know if they're going to be really around for long or not, but they had a decent mobile interface back in the day, and they're certainly aspiring to try to, step in and do something. So I guess we'll see.
And hey, that could be something that maybe the name will come back if the site doesn't.
Right? One can hope. One can hope. Okay, so last on the list is Tumblr. And again, Tumblr is another one of these, hey, we want your Tumblr traffic, come to us sites. They're okay. Their mobile interface is actually horrible. I think on the desktop it would probably be a little bit better, but their mobile interface is terrible, and their content's pretty thin. I mean, definitely not. They definitely don't have the number of users that BDSMler has. It's quite obvious. So
that's always the sad thing. The sort of, all these people pulling these up are, they're all. It's not a small undertaking to create a social media platform, and then when you see one that's just very clearly not quite getting what any media platform needs to be successful, is like the attention and the interaction. It's like,
yeah.
But then that's the web. Unfortunately, most websites are just not going to end up working out. Except for as a collection of things.
So there are 11 Tumblr alternatives and a few honorable mentions thrown in to boot. I think that honestly, there's a couple of bright spots here. I mean, overall, out of these 15 things that we've talked about, there's two that I kind of feel like really work in the way that Tumblr worked and really kind of give me the experience that I had on Tumblr. So that's not great odds, but it really only takes one or two for people to, to get the right feature set and for the community to really gravitate to. And then, hey, like maybe there could be some success here. Maybe there really could be a happy ending to this after all. I don't know.
Hey, there was only one Tumblr before.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So I think that in the case of both Sharesome and BDSMler, it's a little problematic in the sense that those sites are never going to have a native iOS app. And I can say that the experience of having a native Tumblr app was tremendous. It was really, really good.
Jailbreak your phones. Apple employees do it. You should too.
So that's never going to happen with those. But I got to say that I think Sharesome's web interface is like a 9 out of 10, and BDSMler is like an 8 out of 10. So they're very, very good, and there's probably room for a little bit of improvement and refinement that could make them even better. So I was dubious as to whether a web app could really equal the experience of the Tumblr app, but I'm a little bit less skeptical than I was having used these over the past week.
Right, then here's to hoping that even if we're not necessarily in the brightest spot for social media and the community in general of Hypno Kinksters, maybe that's just around the corner.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like there could be some light at the end of the tunnel. I think mostly it's time, like it's mostly just like it's time and also the fragmentation aspect. Like I desperately wish that we could all get together and agree on a place to go and go there and just do that, rather than feeling like I'm going to have to split time between 5 of these different services in order to keep track of people.
Yeah, it was one thing back when I used to use Trillion to handle a million different
Right.
messengers. It's a very different thing to have that many different.
Yeah. Maybe that's what we need. What we need is like 2-directional RSS feeds. Because RSS feeds are great for just combining, all your feeds and kind of, having that experience of, oh, here's all the new stuff that from all these places that I want to follow. But it doesn't really go back the other way. Like it's not as easy to just say like, oh, comment on this thing, or, oh, I like this thing, or I want to message this person. That's where it kind of breaks down. Like maybe that's the service that we're waiting on. So we can subscribe to people across all these different platforms and then communicate back with them just as easily from one interface. That would maybe be a worthwhile undertaking for some ambitious, brilliant software developer.
And we can only hope.
All right, moving on.
But I'm not the only one who's been super productive lately and who has a large volume of work that just keeps swelling. Let's face it here. Like how long have you been working at the Manip game? Like I'm sure you've told me before, but yeah. I cannot remember these things.
2005. So this is year number 14.
Oh, we're on like basically the same time scale. Let's try to remember that. With that in mind, like you haven't stopped either. Life has hardly not been hitting you, but no,
it's true.
I understand that you've got a lot of stuff that you've been working on. What's new with you?
Well, I went through like last year, the last half of last year turned into a real dry spell just because I got so super busy with a couple of other things and just really found it hard to steal time to do manip work and stuff. But at the beginning of this year, I was able to make up for lost time a little bit, and I do have some things that are out and things that are coming out. The most recent thing I did was a short series. It's only 2 images, but it's a pretty lengthy story called Neighborly that was released on February the 19th. So just going on 4 weeks ago now. And that one, that's an image that came from Tumblr that I just loved and immediately said, oh, I know what I can do with this and all that fun stuff. But that's my first follow-up. I did this piece late last year called Fun Room, which you helped me proofread when I was doing the writing for that and everything. So you kind of know what that one's about.
That was a fun project.
It was. I really enjoyed it, but it's one of those things that it didn't go over with the audience as well as you would hope. That the people who responded, they had some criticisms. They thought there were some holes and things in it, and those things really sting when you agree with them, when you know that it's not your best effort or what you were hoping to accomplish exactly or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing with that though, with Fun Room, was that it was pretty lengthy caption. I don't remember how many. I don't remember what the word count was, but it was it was over 1,500. It's probably
it was impressive.
2,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And when I sat down to start working on what would become Neighborly, which the short synopsis of this story is that a woman falls prey to her seductive, mind-controlling neighbor, if you want to put it like that. When I started working on this, I really had it in my mind that, okay, let's just write something short and simple the way that I used to do back in the old day, a few hundred words, write a caption for it, and move on. And every time I sat down to write this thing, I would hit 1,200, 1,300 words in a single session. And I started from scratch several times and went over the 1,000-word mark, like, every time I came back to it. Like, I simply could not make this short. Like, I just kept coming up with all these different ideas and stuff.
Yeah. And how can you hold back from that when it keeps feeling good when you're getting these good ideas?
Right. And at some point, I think I had this moment of realization where I said, on some level, I'm trying to sort of retreat back into my comfort zone, go back to what has worked before and what didn't get me criticized or, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I remembered sage advice that both you and I have heard in our own lives and that we've repeated on this podcast, and that is, if you want to get good at something, you've got to suck at it first, and you've got to just weather the storm of you sucking at it, because working at it is the only way you'll get better. And the something in this case is writing more long-form stories that are measured in the thousands of words instead of hundreds. I'm interested in doing that. I want to be able to do it. I don't have a lot of practice at it, which is why it's not easy going as I'm gravitating into that, or as I'm sort of transitioning into doing more of that. And so at some point I just said, you know what, I just have to do this. I have to do this. I have to suck. I have to take the blows and the criticism because they're right. I'm not great at this. I don't have a lot of experience at it, and the only way I'm going to get better is if I have experience. So I just have to do it. And that's it.
I would say that you're showing, like, I've gotten to see some of your longer works before, like other people have, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, some of the rougher states, and I mean you've shown improvement already to me, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon as long as you keep going at it. Though a thing that stands out amusingly to me is that I'm looking at Neighborly here. I'm seeing something familiar with some of these names.
Yeah, where did that come from, you think? So as I was working on this, at some point, and I couldn't tell you now. The lead character's name was Susan at some point, but at some point as I'm writing this, and it didn't really, I didn't plot it that way, it didn't start that way, but at some point as I was writing it, I realized this is kind of Lord May. This is sort of that Tabaco story, Lord May. It's a little bit that, but it's taking place from the wife's perspective now as opposed to the husband's. And so when I realized that, I thought, it might be just a neat sort of tip of the hat to just go ahead and just steal the character names. So the three characters are Emily, Tom, and May, who is a woman in my story, is M-A-E as opposed to Lord May, M-A-Y. But yeah, it was just sort of a tip of the hat to Tabaco. And that's one of those stories that, from Tabaco's catalog that I just go back to constantly because it just is endlessly hot, and I always find some new detail to pick out, things that hit me a certain way, a turn of phrase or some little detail that I'd missed in the 20 sometimes I've probably read it. I never get tired of seeing that story. So it's sort of just a nod to what a wonderful piece of writing that one is.
Yeah, that really is a great story, and it's one of those that is good enough that even Tabaco can just leave it at the chapters needed for the story. It's the only one that has basically
deleted scenes.
Could have happened like this.
Yeah, right.
What if it happened like this?
But what about this? Yeah, which I love. I love reading through those. But yeah, it's a great story of hers, and this is my somewhat sophomoric tribute to it, I guess. So that was cool.
Yeah, no, it I mean, you say sophomoric, but I mean, like, you might be growing in, aspects of your process, but I mean, you're still, it's not like you're coming at this from nothing.
Right? Yeah, yeah. From a Photoshop standpoint, I feel relatively on firm footing in that. Although, I I got myself in trouble again this time
Oh, no.
because there's this moment. There was a Tumblr blog that has vanished since the purge, and it's the one Tumblr blog I really wish I could find again. It was called Beauty on Beauty, and the theme of the blog was basically like girlfriends and housewives being stolen away by seductive women. Okay. And and there was all, like, the author would write little short pieces of fiction, or they would caption photos and things like that, and I loved it. It was so good. And in a lot of ways, this piece sort of went the direction it did, inspired by that. And there was one image on this blog. I can't remember the specifics, but it was like, I have no idea what the original image was intended for, if it was an advertisement or if it was a piece of stock image or whatever. But it was just this woman, and she was sort of standing like on a porch or something like that, with her mouth sort of open, like, oh my gosh, and like a hand sort of covering it as if she's in shock.
Yeah.
And either the author of the blog, Beauty on Beauty, or somebody who was reblogging her picture, they had captioned it, and the caption was something to the effect of, when I invite a housewife over for a first date, I like to answer the door wearing high heels, a strap-on, and nothing. And it was just like, I loved it. Like, it was just, it was a fun idea. It's a sexy idea. I was so enamored of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wanted to pay tribute to it in some small way. And so I wanted to have this moment where Emily goes to May's house, knocks on the door, and May answers the door wearing high heels, a strap-on, and nothing. And I decided I need to have a picture for this. Like, you need to see this moment. And every time I have an idea for an image that I don't have an image to go along with, it can be a thing. And so I had to go through this whole process of, I've got to find an image that's got the background. It's got to look like a high-end house and somebody's answering the door. And so that's a whole Google image reverse search. And so, like, I find an image that's really great, except the model in the image is not remotely dressed the way that I need them to be. Okay, so now I have to remove the model. Now I've got to find another model that's lit in a similar way so that it fits with the background, and they've got a strap on, but it's not really what I need, so now I've got to replace that, and it's a whole thing. But it turned out fine. It turned out fine.
Yeah,
but
that's probably I've run into with cover art, so I can only imagine
Right.
what it's like when the art is like more central to your actual piece.
Yeah, it can get out of hand quick. But anyway, it's fine. And it went from, I'm going to make this a really short and simple caption, and it's 5,566 words. It's like 4 or 5 times longer than anything I've ever written. So it's a freaking encyclopedia by comparison to my other work. It's just, I don't know, funny how these things work out sometimes.
Yeah, but speaking of positive things that came out of Tumblr, because hey, we can turn this around.
That's true. Which I'd
if
love
I'm
to
not
do.
If I'm not mistaken, you've developed a sort of working relationship, so to speak, with someone you met on Tumblr for some of your minute work.
Yeah, there's a lovely woman on Tumblr named Brooke. She goes by the name Finding My Way Forever. She's still on Tumblr, and she got in touch with me sometime last year. We started talking and palling around and stuff on Discord, and she sent me some images and asked if I had any ideas for maybe doing some manip work with them, and I asked her to take some images just for me and gave her some ideas about what I'd kind of like to see, how it should be framed, and props and things like that. And she ended up sending me some images and some video, and I did a little manipulation, this animation piece with them that went on Tumblr, and everybody seemed to really enjoy. So we are at it again. We're going to do a follow-up piece, tentatively titled Our Girl Brooke, because as it turns out, she and I are both big fans of that famous brainwashing scene in Our Man Flint, and the the pleasure unit brainwashing scene that many of us have seen many, many times throughout the years, and that's going to be sort of a central idea to the piece. But if you're interested, well, I'll read the synopsis. Here's the synopsis. Callidus sends Brooke a copy of her favorite brainwashing scene from Our Man Flint. It's much more entrancing than even she remembered. ... So I can tell you. What do you think?
If that doesn't get someone's attention, I don't know what will. That's because like, I admit I haven't seen that before. Though I've seen like we've talked about it before, and like I've seen like the prop that got sold somewhat recently that was ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
That's got to be a fun project.
I'm looking forward to it. It's I've got a whole host of images, and there's some video to go along with it. And at this point, the story is outlined. I've done a little bit of writing on it. I've got the images pretty much lined up as far as what I'm going to use and what order it's going to all take and everything. So right now, it's just sort of refining those aspects as I do a little bit more of the writing. Interestingly, the manip work is not as demanding in this one, since Brooke was kind enough to take pictures specifically for this, so I don't have to change as much as I normally would, which is awesome. It's an entirely different kind of giddy feeling I get from it.
I imagine. I mean, because I did a little bit of dabbling way back when, and when the work is basically already just begging for it, it doesn't really take very much. But I never got to work with someone who's basically going, "Hey, can you just do your magic on this?" And that has to be an entirely different fun feeling.
It is. It's very, very fun. It's something I've been wanting to do for many, many a year, and Brooke, this is the first opportunity that's come along. I mean, I've had people that have sent me existing photos and said, "Hey, would you mind doing something with this?" I've done that, but as far as someone specifically taking pictures for me to use in a story that we've already kind of bashed out a little bit, that we've kibitzed on, this is the first opportunity that, with Brooke, the last piece, and then this one as a follow-up, are the first times that I've been able to do that, and I have to say it's awesome. I absolutely love it. I can't say enough thank yous to Brooke for that. And if you're interested in finding her, by the way, she is still on Tumblr, as I said. It's findingmywayforever.tumblr.com. She also has a Patreon if you'd like to support her there. It's patreon.com/BrookePalm, P-O-M, Brooke Palm, all one word, on Patreon. I just realized I pronounce Patreon differently every time I say it. Could be Patreon, could be Patreon. It's like flip of the coin.
It's one of those names, and I'm sure they have like a statement somewhere. And I know they've made videos knowing the people involved,
True.
but I don't think I've ever been told explicitly like it's definitely blank. I would imagine it's supposed to be Patreon because like being a patron.
That would make sense.
I don't know. Either way, support more people on Patreon if you're able to. Don't feel guilty if you can't, though, because that's like that is a thing I've seen too many people in the community get it.
You do it where you can. You help out where you can, but you got to take care of yourself first. I mean, definitely don't go in debt. Don't lose sleep. Don't give up on eating to support people on Patreon. Make sure that you're okay first, and then if you got that little bit extra, then contribute. But nobody wants you to harm yourself for someone else's art.
No.
All right.
Definitely not.
Speaking of other art, I'm gonna just real quickly just plug a couple of things, because this is a follow-up from my blog a while back. I've got a project section now where I have a number of things that are in progress on, and I took a poll and I said, "Hey, which one of these would you like to see done first?" And so I thought I would just give a brief little update here.
What you got?
The one that won was a piece called Pleasure Professional. And it's based on I can't remember what, I'd have to go and look at it, what website it comes from, but the source material, that's the name of the actual like pornographic video that I'm sourcing for the image. It's called Pleasure Professionals. And it's from like, taboo.com, or I can't remember off the top of my head now. I'll put it in the show notes though. But anyway, that Pleasure Professionals won. The synopsis of that is, a powerful CEO enlists the services of an exclusive agency that promises to fulfill her greatest sexual fantasy, being a mind-controlled slave.
Wow.
So, when last I updated that, I had an image and an idea for the story. I have now finished the manipulation work, and I have completed a first draft of the story. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that is coming along, and that's something that you'll be seeing from me in the near future as well.
Awesome. Gonna definitely be looking forward to seeing that. But I don't imagine that's the only thing you've got on the pipeline, just because, now that you're back, got the flow going.
Yes.
What else can we expect to see from you?
I'm glad you asked, because I have to say that one that I'm really excited about, and it's kind of snuck up on me recently, but one of the other projects that I had laid out here is this one called Space Ranger. And if you go to my website, if you go to callidus-mc.com/projects, you can see the things that we're talking about here. But anyway, so I have this image called Space Ranger. The summary, the synopsis of the image is that the princess of a planetary coalition is captured by sinister forces plotting to seize control. And this image is in the same way that Nickelodeon was scratching an itch that I had for a long time in terms of there's a specific genre of mind control that I want to sort of play with, like a sandbox I want to play in. So too is Space Ranger, and that is the sort of the pre-space race, space opera and science fiction serials and TV shows and things like the original Flash Gordon, the original Buck Rogers, later in the 50s, Rocky Jones, Space Ranger. And I talk a little bit about this on the site. In Rocky Jones, there was a mind-controlling villainess. There was this woman character who had mind control technology and used it to get up to all sorts of nefarious plots and things. And this image that I found really, really put me in that mindset and thinking like, oh, I could totally do this. And, so it'd be, like be some princess and she's gotten captured and the evil mind controller is using her mind control room on her. And there's some sort of space opera politics that she's a part of. And that's what all of this is in pursuit of, is, some evil character that's trying to get control of a politically powerful individual. That kind of, that was just sort of like the rough idea.
You do a really good job with that too. I really, the work you did with Tabaco on that, the name is totally escaping me.
Decisive Results.
Yeah, no, that was like the interplay of power and I don't think that's done quite enough. You get a lot of, and I know I haven't done nearly enough with it, but how do you feel about that? The exploring specifically the not just the control for purely this person is hot or this is what I want in this exact moment, but for more of an agenda, because I feel like we don't see that a lot in the fetish.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I really like because I feel like it gives you a lot of stuff right out of the box. It gives you a little bit of extra drama. It raises the stakes a bit. And it also answers a question which, on some level, me as a reader, my suspension of disbelief, I struggle sometimes when the story is, like a person has created and it's funny because I realize I'm describing Fun Room. Like I just did this exact thing that I'm now going to criticize. But anyway, like a person has gone through all of this trouble. They spent untold fortunes on creating a mind control apparatus of some sort so that they can sleep with the person that they're attracted to. And it feels a little bit hollow to me, like it falls flat just a little bit. And I kind of feel like if you're going to go through this much trouble, if you're going to spend this much money to do this, there's probably a greater reason. There's probably a bigger reason than just sort of gratifying yourself sexually with another person. That's part of it. That's a bonus, but that is probably not the main driver. And so that's just, that's one of my things philosophically, that I just tend to like that stuff because I think that it adds a little bit of spice to the, to the seasoning. So that's why I like it. But the reason that is significant here in this manip is that I recently stumbled onto an image series that I saw and immediately, I saw it as a way of tying into the existing image I already have for Space Ranger.
Yeah.
And seeing this image series, it instantly unlocked some fresh ideas in my mind and saying, okay, so as opposed to this being like a scene about a princess who's been captured and is being mind controlled or whatever, as opposed to this being an image that is about that scene, I suddenly saw a way to expand it a bit and make it a bit more of a story. And so now I've got this crew, there's Captain Jet Jones and her plucky crew who are going to try to come to this princess's rescue, and what's going to happen to them when they get there. And what if the princess isn't behaving quite as they're expecting once they arrive? Where are they arriving at, and who's there waiting for them? Who's pulling the strings, figuratively and literally, with this princess? Is she the only person involved? Is she the only princess? Is she the only political leader that might be caught up in these events? What if there are others? And who is the mastermind behind it all? Suddenly, all of this stuff began to fall in place, and I sat down one day. I had a few hours of time and nothing blocked off to do, and I went to Google image search, and I just started keyword searching and just getting lucky, finding things and finding things and finding things. And I pulled some other assets in. I actually even came across an image set that I've had stashed for, no kidding, 12 years, that I looked at and said, "Oh my gosh, this would tie in. This is perfect. This would be exactly what I need." And so, like, it just went from an idea that I was excited about to suddenly it's like turned into like a production. Like, it's a whole thing. And I'm really, really excited about working on that and finishing it up. It's not going to be soon. It's going to be later this year at the earliest, but I'm really excited about getting that done. And I think you'll be excited too to see it.
Yeah, no, I look forward to it already. And that, amusingly, I just, like, something about that reminded me of something. So I decided to take a look, because I could have sworn that Trilby had an old, like, sort of that sort of era, sort of sci-fi sort of thought, Golden. And amusingly, we were talking about another story that you had that character was named Susan, and completely just random coincidence that happened to be the main character of Golden.
In Golden? Oh, well,
just for the sake of like something that ties back around, just as hey, we're here to tell people to look at old stuff. Golden's great. Golden I'm super looking forward to Space Rangers. Like, that sounds really good.
I am too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun just, whittling away on certain aspects of it while I'm concentrating on finishing up other things. It's, just here and there where I kind of finish up one thing on another project. I'll swing back over to this and, do a little bit more work on this, or find a little bit of something I can do and keep it on the back burner while other projects are inching towards completion.
Yeah, honestly, like, I don't know a single creative person that's only ever working on one thing at a time. You have to be like thinking of more than one, or else what are you gonna do? You need some back burner work.
It's true. It's totally true. It's funny, just how sometimes you really have to take a break from one project and just go to something completely different, just because, I don't know, maybe you have to sort of rest the muscles that you're using for the first project and use a different set for the second project, or I don't know what exactly the fatigue factor is, but I've done that a number of times over the years, and the first few times I did it, I felt really, I don't know, I felt like it was a bad thing. I felt like, oh, I'm not being very disciplined by abandoning this project and doing something else. But over time, I've come to realize that that's a very natural part of the creative process.
Definitely is. I think we all go through that in one way or another, one time or another, and I always feel like I come out on the other side a better creator for it.
I agree. Well, I think one of the most famous examples is the Coen brothers. I believe that they said that they wrote The Big Lebowski while taking a break from Fargo, that they were working on Fargo and they needed a break from it, and so they just completely pushed pause on that and went and wrote The Big Lebowski, and then they came back and did Fargo. And I'm like, hey, you got two iconic, fantastic movies out of it, so the process cannot be at fault here.
No, that is definitely true.
All right. And we cannot be at fault either in the arena of supplying you with a heaping ton of erotic mind control podcast goodiness. We've been away so long, it only seems fitting to give them a supersized edition of the show, don't you think?
Oh, no, I agree. And it gives you more to listen to ask for more of something, or to point out more from something we've said, because, hey, listener interaction, that's definitely something we're into. We are totally into being swayed by your demands.
That is exactly right. And we look forward to hearing what those demands may be and what your comments may be if you have any thoughts on the myriad of topics that we discussed in this episode, please stop by and throw us a line and let you know what you think. You can, of course, find the show's official homepage with all of the episode notes, the show notes that we've mentioned, and links and things like that. If you want to follow up on any topics, you can find those at the show's official homepage, which is podcast.callidus-mc.com, or you can just go to my website, click on the podcast link in the nav bar. It's not difficult to do. Tell them where they can find you, Madam Kistulot. You're on the web, you're on Twitter, and a number of other places.
Yep, you can find me at madamkistulot.net. On there is links to all of the writing you can find for me on Amazon. I'm on MC Stories under the same name. I'm on Twitter at Madam Kistulot or at Corinne_McLeod. My name is the most weird spelling ever, but it's linked off of my website, so I just recommend going there. And that's really where my main focus are these days. And if you have any kind of feedback, madamkistulot@gmail.com is a great way to reach me. I would be super happy to hear about something you'd want us to broadcast, signal boost, take a look at, etc. Because I am fetishist for life, and I want to make sure that there's more stuff that more people are looking at, so that people ask for more of it, get more of it.
That's right. This is the podcast of more, as we have established very firmly in this episode, I think. But you'll have to wait until next time for more, and there will be a next time, and not so lengthy a wait for it as it was for this one. I promise you that. So, thank you from both myself and from Madam Kistulot for joining us on this edition of the Black Room Podcast. We look forward to seeing you again. Until then, farewell.